1977 draft. The 1977 NBA draft turned into a complete circus. Held in Madison Square Garden, this thing dragged through 8 rounds with 170 total picks. By then, most teams were already tired of pretending like round 7 pick number 147 was gonna change their season. So what did they do? They rebelled. Kansas City Kings? They went full Olympic mode and drafted Bruce Jenner, who'd never touched a pro basketball court. Boston Celtics? They apparently chose their water boy in one of the late rounds. That's how deep the nonsense ran. But then the Lakers went full cartoon. They tried to draft Scooby-Doo. That was real. And the league wasn't amused. They rejected it. The Lakers weren't done. Next came a wooden chair. They claimed it belonged to Jerry West's mom. Again, denied. But the point was made loud and clear. The draft had become a joke, and the teams used that stage to mock it. It wasn't just about the picks. It was about calling out the absurdity of wasting time going so deep into a pool of talent that just wasn't there. The league didn't change a thing that year, though. It actually took 12 more years for them to finally cut it down. But this draft, this one screamed for change, with a cartoon dog and a wooden chair leading the charge. Wilt races an Olympian. Wilt Chamberlain's track numbers are so wild, they sound like playground myth. But the man really was built like a superhero and still ran like a sprinter. In high school, he clocked 49 seconds in the 440-yard dash. He also ran the 880 yards in 1 minute and 58.3 seconds. And then there's the high jump, 6 feet 6 inches while being 7 feet tall. Who even does that? By the time he got to Kansas, he just kept stacking up the stats. 10.9 seconds in the 100-yard dash, over 50 feet in the triple jump, and 56 feet in the shot put. Let that sink in. This wasn't some clunky big man trotting around a track. He was winning Big 8 high jump titles for 3 years. And somehow, the stories get even crazier. There are people who say Wilt beat Jim Brown. Yes, that Jim Brown, twice in 100-yard sprints. No cameras, no timers, just bragging rights. And those bragging rights never left. Now, Mac Robinson was no slouch. He brought home a silver medal from Berlin in the 200 meters. That time put him right near 10.9 seconds in the 100 meter. So, the idea of Wilt going toe-to-toe with an Olympian doesn't sound that far-fetched when you look at those numbers. Even if there's no official record of a face-off, just look at Wilt's times. 10.9 seconds, while weighing almost 300 pounds and standing over 7 feet. That's not just fast, that's freak-level athletic. The guy basically rewrote the limits of what a body could do. Barry Bremen's Lakers prank. Back in 1974, the Lakers were stumbling around after a letdown of a season, desperate for something new. Enter Barry Bremen, the master of mischief, who decided to create a fake basketball prodigy out of thin air. He called him Scooter McCrae, a 7-foot unicorn, supposedly playing at the University of South Texas State, which, spoiler alert, did not exist. Bremen didn't just toss out a name. He built an entire legend. He forged stats, wrote glowing scouting reports, even claimed Scooter had Bill Walton's brain in Artis Gilmore's body. And to top it off, he had a coach's letter, swearing by this guy's future all-star potential. He mailed it out like it was real, and one team actually fell for it. Yep, the Lakers. They didn't just take a glance and move on. They seriously considered drafting him. He made it onto their internal draft board. They were getting ready to bring this imaginary giant to Los Angeles for a private workout. And Bremen, he kept delaying, saying Scooter had to finish classes or was nursing an ankle injury. Eventually, one exec got suspicious and decided to check out the school. That's when it all unraveled. There was no school, no coach, no player, just a fictional basketball hero created by a guy who sold insurance for a living. The Lakers were not amused, but one scout reportedly said they actually debated drafting him anyway because the paperwork was just that good. Only Barry Bremen could almost convince a professional basketball team to burn a pick on a ghost. And honestly, that's just legendary level trolling. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyway, Colin Sexton's 3-on-5 takeover. This one is college basketball, but it's still crazy. Plus, it's a great NBA player, Colin Sexton. Alabama's bench had already disappeared after the brawl got everyone tossed with 13 minutes left in the second half. Then Dazon Ingram fouled out with 11 minutes to go. And just like that, John Petty rolled his ankle, limped off, and suddenly Alabama was playing with 3 players against 5 in a real actual college basketball game. The scoreboard wasn't pretty. Minnesota had a 15-point lead, and Alabama was down to Colin Sexton, Galen Smith, and Riley Norris. But instead of folding, Sexton went into full maniac mode. He didn't just run the offense, he was the offense. The lead shrank with just over a minute left. Alabama had clawed it back to 83-80. 3 guys nearly flipping the game entirely. It was unreal. Sexton dropped 40 points. He went 12 for 22 from the field and 12 for 16 at the line. That wasn't just a hot streak. It was a clinic. Every bucket he hit felt like a punchback at the scoreboard. Minnesota looked confused, like they were seeing a glitch in real life. Even Richard Pitino, Minnesota's coach, was stunned, said Sexton could be a team all by himself. And honestly, that night, he was. ESPN called it one of the most bizarre things they'd ever seen. Reddit melted down over the insanity. Final score? Minnesota barely held on, 89-84. But nobody remembers who won. They remember that for 10 full minutes, Colin Sexton played 3-on-5 basketball and almost pulled off one of the craziest upsets in college history. That was no fluke. That was a full-on statement. The Brooks trade debacle. This one's a front office comedy sketch disguised as an NBA trade. Back in December of 2018, the Suns, Wizards, and Grizzlies cooked up a 3-team deal. The Wizards were ready to grab Trevor Ariza. The Suns would get Austin Rivers, Wayne Selden, and a guy named Brooks. And Memphis would walk away with Kelly Oubre Jr. That's where it broke. Turns out no one clarified which Brooks was being shipped. The Suns thought they were getting Dillon Brooks, the young starter with real upside. Memphis, they were offloading Marshawn Brooks, a veteran with less shine. This wasn't some last-minute hiccup. This was a full-on identity crisis. Nobody double-checked. Nobody clarified. So Memphis pulls both Dillon and Marshawn into the locker room and tells them they've been traded. Moments later, just kidding. Turns out no one agrees on which Brooks is in the deal. The confusion nuked the whole thing. The trade was dead, just evaporated because someone didn't say the first name out loud. Chris Wallace, the Grizzlies GM, was stunned, called it unfathomable. He had to backtrack in the middle of a transaction. Imagine telling two guys they're out of town, then 20 minutes later going, actually, never mind. Eventually, the Suns and Wizards just cut Memphis out. They completed their own deal. Trevor for Oubre and River. Simple, no mystery names. Marshawn stayed in Memphis a bit longer before getting sent to Chicago. Dillon, who the Suns wanted, kept right on starting. And the NBA world got one of its most ridiculous trade stories, built entirely on the chaos of two guys sharing the same last name. Absolute masterpiece of confusion. Fred Roberts and the preseason payoff. In 1986, Fred Roberts was coming off a decent stretch with the Utah Jazz, averaging just over 6 points a game. Boston came knocking with a 2-year deal worth around $315,000, thinking the Jazz wouldn't bother matching it. But Utah surprised everyone and matched the offer, not because they wanted to keep Roberts long-term, but because they saw a trade opportunity. So Boston had to negotiate. Utah asked for a second-round pick. Boston didn't have one. What did they offer instead? A third-rounder in the next year's draft and something truly out there. 2 preseason games. Not a player, not cash. Just 2 exhibition matchups where Boston stars would roll into Utah and bring the spotlight with them. Utah said yes. That third-round pick turned into Billy Donovan, who never made a splash as a player, but later coached in the league. But the real eyebrow raiser was those 2 preseason games. Utah got to host the Celtics, which meant ticket sales, media attention, and a showcase for fans. That was the actual trade asset. So Fred Roberts was dealt for a draft pick and 2 live basketball games. That's not just quirky, it's basically sports barter economics. The deal is one of the rare moments in NBA history when live games were used like poker chips. And it worked. Utah squeezed value out of their roster without even getting a player back. It's a reminder that sometimes creativity in front offices goes beyond rosters and into revenue. Fred Roberts got a new jersey, Utah got a spotlight, and the league got one of its weirdest trades ever. DeJuan Blair's 0 ACL NBA career. Blair wasn't just playing on bad knees, he was playing with no ACLs at all. Both were torn back in high school, and the surgeries didn't hold. Over time, the scar tissue vanished and his body just adjusted. By the time he got to college, there was no ligament left in either knee. And yet somehow he still hooped like it was nothing. His stability came from pure muscle, strong quads, and hamstring did the work his ligaments were supposed to. This rare setup is something physical therapists call a coper, an athlete who can function without an ACL because their muscle coordination and joint awareness are elite. Blair didn't just walk on the court, he dominated. He was drafted 37th overall by the Spurs in 2009 and went on to play over 400 NBA games. And he made an impact. All rookie second team, major playoff minutes, and a reputation for out-rebounding guys with fully intact knees. But under the surface, doctors were already sounding the alarms. Playing without ACLs puts huge stress on your meniscus and cartilage. That's a fast track to arthritis. His pre-draft scans showed signs of early joint wear, and some teams wouldn't touch him because of it. Still, he made it work. Blair's body adapted in ways that baffle sports medicine. He was a walking case study, proof that the human body can find wild ways to function when it absolutely has to. Even if it meant battling nonstop wear and tear, he kept suiting up. No ACLs, no excuses, just grit, strength, and the kind of durability that belongs in a textbook. Lucia Harris drafted. In the 7th round of the 1977 NBA draft, the New Orleans Jazz used their 137th pick to draft Lucia Harris, a 6'3" center from Delta State. This wasn't a gimmick. Unlike a voided pick back in 1969, this one actually stuck. Harris became the only woman officially drafted by the NBA. She didn't attend training camp though. At the time, she was pregnant and said later she just didn't think she was good enough to play at that level. But the resume said otherwise. At Delta State, she led the team to 3 straight national championships and a 109-6 record. She was named a Kodak All-American 3 times and won the Broderick Cup in 1977. On the international stage, Harris won gold in the 1975 Pan American Games and scored the first ever points in Olympic women's basketball history during the 1976 Games in Montreal, where she helped Team USA earn silver. Years later, the honors kept rolling in. In 1992, she became the first black woman inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame. She followed that with a Women's Basketball Hall of Fame nod in 1999. Her life and career were spotlighted in the Oscar-winning documentary The Queen of Basketball, produced by Shaquille O'Neal Curry. Harris passed away in January of 2022, but the impact she left never faded. Drafted by an NBA team, decorated with medals, and remembered as a pioneer, her story is one of the most powerful in basketball history. Not symbolic, not token, just extraordinary talent that forced the game to take notice. Josh Primo allegations. In late 2022, things imploded around Josh Primo, a promising young guard drafted 12th overall by the Spurs. What started as whispers turned into a full-blown legal storm when team psychologist Dr. Hillary Cawthon filed a civil lawsuit. She alleged Primo exposed himself during private mental health sessions 9 separate times. The first incident reportedly happened in December 2021, and the Spurs were told about it in January. But they didn't act. The team allegedly sidelined Dr. Cawthon, told her to work remotely, and ultimately didn't renew her contract in August. Primo, meanwhile, was still on the court. It wasn't until October 28th, just weeks after the Spurs picked up his 3rd-year option, that they suddenly waived him. The official statement, it was in the best interest of both parties. A year later, in September 2023, the NBA finally dropped its own ruling. Primo got a 4-game suspension for exposing himself to women. No additional sexual misconduct was found, but the league still called it inappropriate and offensive. As for criminal charges, Bexar County's district attorney declined to prosecute. There just wasn't enough to bring an indecent exposure case to court. That happened in December 2023. Meanwhile, the civil case ended quickly. Dr. Cawthon and the Spurs reached a settlement in November 2022. The lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, which means it's over for good. Primo's side denied everything. They claimed it was unintentional, a misunderstanding, even calling the allegations fantasy. But no matter the spin, the fallout was real, and it completely altered the trajectory of Primo's early career. Davis, buzzer beater, Game 7, Hornets versus Magic. It was 2002, and everything came down to one final shot. Davis had the ball, baseline, with defenders flying at him and the clock draining. He pulled up, released it at the buzzer, and it splashed through the net. The arena exploded, except it didn't count. The ref waved it off immediately. No review, no delay. Just one frantic motion saying no good, and that was it. The game went to overtime, and the Hornets lost. But the shot, on every replay, it looked clean. No red lights, no late release. Just a picture-perfect buzzer beater, erased by human error. That miss didn't just sting, it echoed. This wasn't a regular season game in November. It was win or go home. That moment was a catalyst. The league took the heat, heard the backlash, and finally acted. By the next season, the NBA introduced instant replay for buzzer beaters. This play was a major reason why. Fans called it one of the worst calls ever. Heartbreaking was the nice version. Reddit threads lit up with fans reliving that frustration years later. People remember it because it was the perfect shot with the worst outcome. That single decision flipped a playoff result and probably rewrote some careers. Without replay, refs were left guessing in real time, and they guessed wrong. Davis didn't just lose a chance to win, he became the face of a rule change. That missed call showed just how big one moment can be when there's no way to rewind the tape. D'Angelo Russell versus Nick Young. In December of 2015, D'Angelo Russell did something no rookie should ever do. He secretly recorded a teammate. That teammate was Nick Young. On the video, Young talked casually about cheating on his fiancée, Iggy Azalea, and mentioned details about women he'd been with. He didn't know he was being recorded. A few months later, the footage leaked, and that's when everything blew up. Inside the Lakers locker room, Russell went from teammate to pariah. Reports said players stopped sitting with him, walked away from him mid-meal, and shut him out completely. He ate alone, The trust was gone. There was no suspension from the league, but his reputation tanked overnight. The leak wasn't just a PR mess. It exposed a code violation. You don't put private conversations on blast, especially not to the world. Russell apologized, said he felt sick about it, but the damage stuck. The Lakers were already a mess that season, Kobe Bryant's last, and this just made it worse. They got smoked by Utah in a 48-point loss that week, and the drama was everywhere. Media, fans, even players were stunned by how badly things had spiraled. Nick Young kept his distance from the team. The Lakers added security. Russell stayed through that season, but in 2017, they traded him. Magic Johnson later said trust was part of the reason. The recording had left a stain they couldn't scrub. In the end, nobody pressed charges. No one got fined, but reputations changed, careers moved, and the tape became one of the most bizarre and damaging locker room stories in recent NBA memory. Royce White's flying phobia. Royce White came into the NBA with size, skill, and something you don't often see on a scouting report: aviophobia. That's right, a deep, physically overwhelming fear of flying. His anxiety disorder and obsessive traits were well documented before the draft, and yet the Rockets still took him 16th overall in 2012. Right away, there were complications. White asked to travel by bus for certain road games. Houston agreed at first, but tension escalated. He missed training camp. He skipped flights. The front office got frustrated. White claimed he was being dismissed for prioritizing his mental health. Eventually, he got suspended and ended up in the D-League. The weird part, he offered to pay out of pocket for bus travel. He just needed structure, predictability, and mental stability. But the NBA is a travel gauntlet. There's no convenient detour when your schedule bounces between time zones every week. Teams couldn't just reroute. For one guy, the legal debate even hit the ADA. Could his condition be accommodated without derailing team logistics? Lawyers argued, and nothing changed. White tried. He played a few games for the Kings in 2014, then moved overseas. Later, he jumped into politics. But in the end, his name stayed tied to mental health reform in pro sport. He forced the league to look at how it handled anxiety, not with punishment, but with support. His case remains a landmark for what happens when talent runs headfirst into a system not built for neurodivergence. It wasn't a pulled hamstring or broken foot that held him back. It was the silence around mental health finally being forced into the spotlight. Rick Barry frees out. May 16, 1976, Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals. The defending champs, the Golden State Warriors, were locked in with the Phoenix Suns, but something was off. Rick Barry, their star, was barely involved. Not by accident, by design. Barry believed his own teammates froze him out. Passes stopped coming, screens disappeared. They acted like he wasn't there. During halftime, Barry and coach Al Attles reportedly looked at film. Barry saw the cold shoulder and felt it. He came back out, stood on the perimeter, and barely touched the ball again. He wasn't hurt, he was done. This wasn't some low-effort night. It was a playoff game, Game 7. But Barry, known for his sharp tongue and perfectionist grind, had finally worn down the locker room. His teammates were fed up with his criticism and attitude. They weren't going to help him win that one. Barry, seeing the writing on the wall, just stopped competing. He disengaged, barely moved, didn't take shots. The Suns took advantage, closed it out, and the Warriors' title defense collapsed. It wasn't just a loss. It was a breakdown of trust, chemistry, and leadership. Live on the playoff stage. To this day, it's remembered not for a buzzer beater or a stat line, but because a team imploded from the inside. Barry's greatness couldn't overcome the resentment around him. Talent doesn't matter when the team turns away from you. That freeze-out wasn't subtle. It was loud, dramatic, and destructive. And it helped end the Warriors season right then and there. Dennis Rodman marries himself. In 1996, Dennis Rodman showed up at a Barnes and Noble in Manhattan wearing a full wedding dress, rolling in by horse-drawn carriage, flanked by tuxedo-clad women. Not for a movie, not for a prank. He was there to promote his new book, Bad As I Wanna Be, and he announced he was bisexual and marrying himself. Yes, himself. This wasn't just a PR stunt. It was classic Rodman. The outfit, the spectacle, the complete disregard for what anyone expected from an NBA player, especially one in a macho sport, was all part of the message. Rodman said he was revealing all sides of himself, from earrings and nail polish to halter tops and tight shorts. This was years of personal style evolution landing at the altar, alone. And it worked. The stunt blasted him into the media spotlight. Cameras rolled. Headlines exploded. The book rocketed to the top of bestseller lists. Rodman wasn't just a rebound machine. He was an unapologetic, unpredictable icon, challenging every rule about how athletes were supposed to behave. But the move also had cultural weight. A black, male athlete embracing femininity, fluid identity, and defiance of gender norms in public, that was rare. It forced a conversation, and nearly 30 years later, people still talk about it. ESPN's The Last Dance even revisited it as a defining moment. Rodman didn't just show up in a dress, he turned a book promo into a statement on self-love, identity, and radical authenticity. That dress? It wasn't just fabric, it was a mirror showing everyone exactly who Dennis Rodman decided to be. Joe Johnson's Big Three takeover. In 2019, Joe Johnson, at 38 years old, walked into the Big Three like he owned the place. And then he did. He led the league in scoring with 21.9 points per game, racked up 3.9 assists, and even added 7.5 rebounds per game. He wasn't just back, he was dominant. He carried team triplets all the way to a championship, dropping 28 points in the title game against the Killer Threes. On top of that, he hit game winners, lit up 4-point zones, and showed the kind of control that earned him the ISO Joe nickname in the first place. It wasn't nostalgia, it was straight up production. Johnson's run didn't go unnoticed. He became the first player ever to use a Big Three performance as a launch pad back to the NBA. The Detroit Pistons signed him in September that year. It wasn't a long stint. He was waived in October during final roster cuts, but the move was historic. No one had done that before. ISO Joe had kicked the door open. His Big Three performance wasn't just impressive, it was a statement that even after a quiet exit from the NBA in 2018, his game still had juice. He proved the league wasn't just a retirement hobby. It could be a real platform. For Joe, it was exactly that. He might not have stuck in Detroit, but he changed the conversation. That season made clear, if your game is still sharp, even a street ball style 3-on-3 league can put you back in the spotlight. Joe Johnson didn't just play in the Big Three, he redefined what it could do. Gary Payton's Jacuzzi McDonald's ritual. Before home games, Gary Payton didn't just stretch or hit the court early. He hit the jacuzzi with a full McDonald's spread. Big Mac, fries, 6 nuggets, and all of it went down while he sat marinating in a hot tub. That was his pregame prep. This wasn't a one-time thing. He did it before every home game. It wasn't just about the food, it was the routine. The combo of comfort food and hot water locked him into game mode. The fries? Probably cold by the end. But the ritual? Hot every time. Psychologically, this was Peyton's trigger, a signal that it was time to flip the switch. Physically, the jacuzzi loosened him up before even hitting the floor. And somehow it worked. He played 1,335 games over 18 seasons, missed only 25 games in 17 of those, and averaged over 35 minutes a night. That's not luck. That's bizarre consistency with some sauce on the side. The image is wild. One of the league's nastiest defenders, trash-talking legends into submission, warming up his knees while dipping nuggets and plotting steals. But it fit him. Everything about Peyton's career was intense, calculated, and personal, even if it looked ridiculous. It wasn't about the nutrition, it was about the mindset. He believed in it, so it worked. And in an era where players chug protein shakes and meditate pregame, Peyton was soaking in a tub, eating fast food like a man prepping for war in a spa. And then he'd go out and lock someone up. That's Gary Payton for you. Relentless, ritualistic, and absolutely unbothered. Knicks hire a spy. In the late 1960s, the Knicks brought on Edmund Mike Burke as team president. That wouldn't raise eyebrows, except Burke had previously worked for the OSS and the CIA. He wasn't just a guy with a few old medals, he had been a decorated wartime operative with a Navy Cross and a Silver Star. That's not your average resume for running a basketball team. Burke didn't roll into Madison Square Garden wearing night vision goggles, but he absolutely brought that Intel world mindset to sports management. Precision, surveillance, control, and yeah, that bred rumors. He was known to keep everything tight, from staff moves to internal leaks. He was the president of the Knicks and Madison Square Garden, and the guy ran the Yankees too for a stretch, just in case you thought he wasn't busy enough. Was he bugging the locker room? No evidence says he was literally spying, but his presence, with that cloak and dagger past, led to whispers that he was monitoring everything. Not with wiretaps, more with icy stares, and a deep suspicion of chaos. He ran the front office like a mission, and that made people uneasy. So yeah, the Knicks hired a former CIA guy, not to tell players or decode playbooks, but to bring discipline to an organization that, like the Cold War, was built on power dynamics and people who didn't always play nice. Burke might not have planted listening devices, but when he was in charge, nobody felt like they were totally off the radar. Olden Polynice impersonates a cop. In the year 2000, former NBA center Olden Polynice somehow decided his honorary LAPD badge wasn't just a souvenir, it was a license to intimidate strangers in traffic. On September 13th, in Salt Lake City, he got cut off while driving. So naturally, he followed the guy home, whipped out the badge, and told him he was an officer. No, seriously? Then in October, he did it again, this time in West Valley City. Another traffic beef, another badge, flash. But this time, he claimed he was with the California Sheriff's Office. Just made up the affiliation mid-intersection. At that point, it wasn't even confusing. It was a pattern. The courts took notice. He got slapped with 2 misdemeanors for impersonating an officer and 1 for disorderly conduct. Paulinus pled guilty, paid $450 in fines, and was sentenced to probation and anger management. Not a great box score. These weren't one-off oops moments. Both incidents involved him actively trying to use that honorary badge, meant to be symbolic, as leverage to scare people in road rage situations. And 2 times in 1 month? That's not bad luck. That's poor judgment on repeat. He didn't try to spin it as a joke. There was no PR cleanup, just a 7-foot-tall ex-player playing pretend cop in Utah traffic. It's one of those strange, almost cinematic moments in sports history where a retired pro athlete ends up doing something so bizarre, it becomes a legal headline. In the end, Paulinus learned the hard way that honorary badges don't come with actual authority, and that yelling at prosecutors only adds to the fine. Moochie Norris and the insomnia injury. In March of 1999, Moochie Norris made NBA history, not with a dunk, not with a buzzer beater, but by being sidelined due to insomnia. Norris had been struggling with chronic insomnia since around 1990, shortly after his mother passed away. For nearly a decade, he'd been operating on fumes, sometimes just 1 or 2 hours of sleep a night. And finally, it caught up. His shot went missing, his finishing crumbled, and his free throw numbers tanked. He was shooting just 32.5% from the field and barely 37% at the line. Not exactly backup material behind Gary Payton. Coach Paul Westphal acknowledged it straight up. Norris needed rest, not practice. And when a guy with a 10-inch afro shows up looking half zombie before tip-off, there's really no hiding it. Seattle deactivated him on March 4th, making it one of the most unusual injury listings in league history. Norris later returned and went on to carve out a solid career in Houston, New York, and New Orleans. He finished with over 2,000 points and more than 1,000 assists. But that moment stood out. A player being taken out not by a knee or an ankle, but by a brain that wouldn't shut off. It highlighted something rarely discussed back then: mental and neurological health as legitimate barriers to performance. Moochie Norris was more than a cult figure with a flashy look. He was a guy battling an invisible opponent every night and still finding a way to compete. Flu game. Michael Jordan rolled out of bed barely able to stand, let alone play, after eating some sketchy pizza the night before. It wasn't the flu, it was food poisoning, confirmed later by his trainer. He was curled up, dehydrated, throwing up, and still dropped 38 points in 44 minutes. The guy looked half dead, pale, and barely moving during timeouts, but still pulled off a wild performance. He needed help just to walk off the court. Despite all that, his true shooting percentage was nearly 57, and he even added 7 boards, 5 assists, and 3 steals. The Bulls edged the Jazz 90-88, grabbing a 3-2 series lead. Fans still debate if it was bad food, altitude, or just overexertion, but the guy just kept going. One of the most iconic images in league history is Jordan leaning into Scottie Pippen after the final buzzer. That shot turned the myth into legend. Sure, people love to argue about the cause, but the results weren't up for debate. And those shoes, the black and red 12s, yeah, they ended up selling for over $1 million. No matter the cause, the flu game's got a legacy nobody's matching. Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game. On March 2nd, 1962, Wilt Chamberlain did the unthinkable. He scored 100 points in a single game. The matchup took place in a small Pennsylvania arena with just over 4,000 fans watching. There's no full video footage, just audio of the fourth quarter. Chamberlain shot 57% from the field and hit 28 of 32 free throws, which is shocking considering his career struggles at the line. He also pulled down 25 rebounds and played every single minute. By the fourth quarter, the Warriors were feeding him non-stop, and the Knicks couldn't stop it. He scored 59 points in the second half alone. The final score was 169-147. That night, he made up nearly 60% of his team's total points. His performance set a scoring bar that's never been matched, not even close. And yeah, Kobe dropped 81, but it wasn't the same. That 100-point game became part of NBA mythology, and the simple handwritten 100 sign he held after the buzzer, it turned into one of the most famous photos in sports history. Nothing touches it. Cleveland's 3-1 comeback. The Cavaliers clawed back from a 3-1 deficit in the 2016 finals, something no team had ever done before on that stage. They took down a Warriors squad that had just finished the regular season with 73 wins. LeBron James led both teams in every major stat across the series, averaging nearly 30 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists, plus 2 blocks and steals per game. Kyrie added over 27 points a night, including the dagger 3 in Game 7. Game 7 was chaos. LeBron's block, Kyrie's shot, and Kevin Love somehow locking down Steph Curry in crunch time. Draymond Green's Game 5 suspension flipped the series. After that, Cleveland rolled. LeBron had back-to-back 41-point games, then dropped a triple-double in the clincher. The city had waited over 5 decades for a title, and they got it in the most dramatic way possible. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Malice at the Palace. November 19, 2004, everything exploded in Detroit. With less than a minute left, Ron Artest fouled Ben Wallace hard. Wallace shoved him, and chaos followed. Artest laid on the scorer's table, trying to stay calm, until a fan chucked a drink and nailed him. That's when Artest sprinted into the stands and mistakenly tackled the wrong guy. Suddenly, it wasn't basketball anymore. It was a riot. Players, fans, security, all involved. The game was called off. Pacers got the win, but the fallout was brutal. Artest got suspended for 86 games, the longest ever for an on-court incident. Other players got hit too, and millions in salary vanished. Legal charges came down for 5 players and 5 fans. The NBA overhauled security, banned alcohol sales after the third quarter, and created a fan conduct policy. A Netflix doc later told the whole messy story. Linsanity. Jeremy Lin went from sleeping on a couch to lighting up Madison Square Garden in just weeks. The Knicks were spiraling, and Lin, an undrafted guard from Harvard, was barely hanging onto a roster spot. Then came February 4th, 2012. Lin dropped 25 points against the Nets, and from there, it was a full-blown phenomenon. In 12 starts, he averaged over 22 points and nearly 9 assists, with New York winning 8 of those games. He outdueled All-Stars, hit a buzzer beater in Toronto, and torched the Lakers with 38 points. His usage rate jumped to star levels, and the team's offense surged. Media exploded, viewership spiked globally, and Linsanity took over headlines, hashtags, and highlight reels. It wasn't just about stats. It was culture, identity, and breaking molds. Even though the run was short-lived, the impact still echoing through NBA history. Step over. Game 1 of the 2001 Finals, Allen Iverson dropped 48 points on the undefeated Lakers and made sure everyone remembered it. Late in overtime, with the Sixers clinging to a lead, Iverson hit a cold-blooded jumper over Tyronn Lue. Lue hit the floor, and Iverson, he stepped right over him. No flex, no shout, just a silent, swagger-soaked message. The Sixers won 107-101, handing the Lakers their first loss that postseason. Iverson played 52 minutes, snagged 5 steals, and scored 7 straight in overtime. The moment captured his whole vibe: gritty, fearless, unapologetic. It instantly became a cultural milestone. Sure, the Sixers lost the series, but that play defined AI's legacy. Even decades later, that step-over clip still rolls on screens, in memes, and in every Iverson highlight reel ever made. No script, just attitude. Frozen envelope. The Knicks landed Patrick Ewing with the top pick in the first ever draft lottery, and conspiracy theories took off instantly. It was May 12, 1985, and NBA Commissioner David Stern reached into a spinning plastic drum to pull one of 7 envelopes. New York, with equal odds, won the prize. But footage showed one envelope slamming into the drum's corner, creasing it. Some say that envelope was chilled beforehand so Stern could feel it. The idea? The league wanted Ewing in New York to revive a struggling franchise in its biggest market. The Knicks were awful, but Ewing turned them into contenders. Still, skeptics point to that visible crease, Stern's fumbling, and the involvement of an accounting firm tied to Knicks ownership. No investigation ever happened, but the doubt never faded. Whether rigged or not, it's still the most debated draft moment in league history. Game 6 Clay. The Warriors were on the brink, down 3-2 to the Thunder, and Klay Thompson decided the season wasn't ending yet. On May 28, 2016, in Oklahoma City, he went full flamethrower. He dropped 41 points, hitting 11 threes, a playoff record. He scored 19 in the fourth quarter alone, pulling Golden State out of a late 7-point hole. The Thunder had the momentum, the crowd, and the lead, but Klay just kept firing. He didn't even have an assist, just buckets. Golden State won 108-101 and forced Game 7. That win turned the whole series around. The Warriors completed the comeback and knocked the Thunder out. Thompson's shooting barrage became legend, earning him the nickname Game 6 Klay. That one game might have even helped lure Kevin Durant to Golden State. Just a casual seismic shift thanks to jumpers. The bubble. They pulled off the unthinkable. 22 teams, 0 positive cases, and a completely fanless postseason that still had huge stakes. Games ran from late July through mid-October at Walt Disney World, of all places. Players were sealed inside a bio bubble, living like elite hotel prisoners with sushi chefs, golf carts, and proximity alarm. The league shelled out $180 million, but they kept the season alive, finished the playoffs, and tied the Lakers with the Celtics for the most titles ever, 17. Shout out to the bubble legends like T.J. Warren. No fans meant no home court advantage, and it showed. Road teams won half the playoff games. Stars went wild under that weird silence. LeBron put up nearly 30 points a night in the finals and led almost every category. The Heat pushed hard, but injuries hurt them bad. That neutral site gave everything a surreal feel, like a tournament in a video game. Still, the bubble mattered. It gave us unforgettable moments, rare comebacks, and a new way to play. Even with ratings down, the league protected billions in TV money. People may debate its legitimacy, but the execution, that was airtight. 81-point game. Kobe Bryant lit up the Raptors for 81 points on January 22, 2006, giving fans one of the wildest scoring performances in NBA history. It wasn't just buckets. He dropped points from everywhere, with defenders basically serving as background characters. The Lakers were down big early, but he took over and refused to let them lose. He scored 55 of those in the second half alone. This wasn't some random game either. The Lakers needed every point to win. He shot 28 for 46 from the field and 18 for 20 from the free throw line. His teammates pretty much just stood back and watched the chaos unfold. The Raptors had no answers. And honestly, it looked like they stopped trying. This wasn't just scoring, it was total domination. Only Wilt Chamberlain ever scored more in a game. The Decision. It aired July 8, 2010, live from a Boys and Girls Club in Connecticut. Nearly 10 million people tuned in just to watch LeBron James say a sentence. After 7 years with Cleveland, 2 MVPs, and 0 titles, he chose to leave and join Miami with D. Wade and Chris Bosh. The quote, "I'm going to take my talents to South Beach." The fallout was instant. Jerseys burned, Dan Gilbert typed in Comic Sans, and Cleveland spiraled to 19 wins. Miami's Big Three got introduced in a packed arena the next day with LeBron promising rings, many rings. The Heat made 4 straight finals, winning 2. James's stats surged, hitting over 54% from the field and posting a player efficiency rating of nearly 30. He raised money for charity during the broadcast, but the backlash was brutal. Still, it changed everything. How stars move, how fans react, and how power shifted forever. Michael Jordan's baseball run. In October of 1993, he shocked everyone by walking away from basketball. Then in February of 1994, he signed with the Chicago White Sox and joined the Double-A Birmingham Barons. That season, he played 127 games, batted just over 200, hit 3 home runs, and swiped 30 bases. Sure, he struck out 114 times and made 11 errors in the outfield. But this wasn't some gimmick. He really went for it. He recorded his first hit in April, cracked his first home run in July, and even played in the Arizona Fall League, where he raised his average to 252. His manager, Terry Francona, said he had the potential to make the majors with more reps. Jordan stepped away during the Major League Baseball strike in March of 1995, choosing not to cross the picket line. Dirk Nowitzki's 2011 Finals. This was the year Dallas flipped the league upside down. They weren't a super team, just a squad with one superstar and a game plan. Dirk averaged 26 points, nearly 10 rebounds, and shot over 92% from the line, all with a torn finger tendon and a 101-degree fever. The Mavericks outshot Miami from 3, won the paint battle, and their bench flat out outplayed the Heats. LeBron James, he averaged under 18 points and scored just 8 in Game 4. Dallas's zone defense frustrated the Heat, and Jason Terry poured in 17 to 27 points when it mattered. Rick Carlisle's schemes stifled Miami's ISO-heavy attack, and Dirk's left-handed layup in Game 2 iced a comeback. By Game 6, it was over. Dirk got his Finals MVP, Dallas got their first title, and the Heat's super team had to wait their turn. Shaq and Kobe feud. It kicked off in 1996 when the Lakers paired rookie Kobe Bryant with superstar Shaq. Their styles clashed fast. Kobe was obsessive about training, while Shaq leaned laid back. Tension spilled into practices, games, and even a near fight. Still, they won 3 titles in a row from 2000 to 2002, with Shaq grabbing all 3 Finals MVPs. But the drama never cooled. By 2004, things hit a boiling point. Shaq delayed surgery, Kobe questioned his effort, and both took jabs in the media. The team added aging stars Karl Malone and Gary Payton, but chemistry collapsed. After losing to Detroit in the finals, Shaq was traded to Miami. Years later, they patched things up. Shaq apologized, Kobe forgave, and they praised each other often. After Kobe's death in 2020, Shaq called him his little brother. Reggie Miller's 8 points in 9 seconds. May 7th, 1995. Madison Square Garden was loud, confident, and about to get punched in the mouth. The Pacers trailed by 6 with under 19 seconds left, no timeouts. Then, chaos. Miller hit a 3, stole the inbound, hit another 3, drew a foul, and sank 2 free throws. That's 8 points in 8.9 seconds. The Knicks unraveled. Miller had 31 on the night, shot over 53%, and finished with 2 steals, both in those last frantic seconds. His choke sign toward Spike Lee became immortal. Ewing had 31, but missed the buzzer shot. That comeback stole Game 1 and sparked Indiana's series win. It wasn't just the points. It was the timing, the swagger, the Garden silence. No one's done anything like it since. Miller didn't just beat the Knicks, he haunted them forever. Michael Jordan's last shot, Game 6, 1998 Finals. Bulls down 1, 20 seconds left. Stockton misses, Malone posts up. Then Jordan swipes the ball clean. No timeout, no hesitation. He dribbles calmly, isolates on Brian Russell. Then, boom, a crossover, a pull-up, and that 20-footer drops with 5.2 seconds left. Bulls take the lead, 87-86. That was Jordan's 45th point of the night. He shot 15 for 35, went 12 of 15 at the line, and hit 3 threes. He also stole the ball 4 times, including that one. Utah had a shot, Stockton missed, and just like that, Chicago won their 6th title in 8 years. Jordan played 44 minutes and outscored everyone else on both teams. That moment wasn't just a game winner, it was a mic drop. One last iconic flex from the biggest name in basketball. Magic Johnson's rookie finals takeover. Kareem's ankle kept him home, so a 20-year-old rookie point guard played center in a title game and dominated. Magic dropped 42 points, grabbed 15 boards, and dished 7 assists in 47 minutes on the road. He went 14 of 23 from the field and hit all 14 free throws. The Lakers won 123-107, sealing the title. Jamal Wilkes added 37 points, but it was Magic's night. He won the tip, ran the break, scored in the post, and even snagged 8 offensive boards. The Sixers couldn't keep up with his size or pace. He became the first rookie finals MVP ever. That performance didn't just win a championship, it launched Showtime, boosted league ratings, and redefined what a guard could be. Magic wasn't just a nickname that night, it was a fact. Robert Horry, big shot. Bob made a whole career out of assassinating title hopes with a smirk and a 3. You know how most players dream of hitting one playoff game winner? Horry did it so many times, he probably forgot a couple. His buzzer beater in the 0-2 Western Conference Finals Game 4, grabbing Vlade Divac's panicked volleyball serve and sinking a cold-blooded 3, is basically a Greek tragedy for Sacramento. He had 18 points, 3 threes, 8 boards, and the soul of every Kings fan in his back pocket. Then there's the 1995 dagger over the Spurs and the 0-3 heartbreaker to momentarily keep the Lakers' three-peat alive. 7 rings, 320 playoff threes, and enough highlights to get his own 30 for 30 called right place, right time. Horry didn't just hit clutch shots, he was the moment, and the NBA still hasn't recovered. Youngest MVP, Derrick Rose didn't just break a record, he slammed the door on it. At just 22 years and 191 days old, he became the youngest player ever to win the MVP award. He snagged 1,182 total points in the vote and took 113 out of 121 first-place votes. That season, he played 81 games and put up 25 points, 7.7 assists, and 4.1 rebounds per game. His field goal percentage sat at 44.5, and he hit 85.8% from the line. The Bulls finished 62-20, topping the Eastern Conference. Under a rookie head coach, they even made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Rose had a player efficiency rating of 23.5 and racked up 15.6 win share. He also landed a spot on the All-NBA first team and made his second All-Star appearance. That MVP run wasn't just flashy, it was efficient and relentless. The guy turned the Bulls into a real threat and didn't need to be loud about it. Just showed up, dropped 2,026 points, and changed everything. 7 seconds or less. The Suns didn't just push the tempo, they shoved it into fast forward. From 2004 to 2007, they led the league in pace, bombing threes and slicing defenses with Steve Nash's pick and rolls. Nash dished 11 assists a night, while Stat exploded for 26 points per game. Their spacing was wild, 4 shooters, 1 big, and everything moved at breakneck speed. That season, they attempted 2,026 threes and hit nearly 40%. Their offensive rating of 114.5 was miles ahead, but defense, yeah, not great. They were 18th. Still, they won 62 games, led the West, and changed how teams thought about offense. No finals appearances, but they didn't need one to shake the league. D'Antoni's small lineups and spacing blueprint spread everywhere. Today's offenses owe a debt to those Suns. They made chaos look surgical. Sam Bowie, drafted over Michael Jordan in 1984, Portland used the second overall pick to draft Sam Bowie, passing on Michael Jordan. They already had Clyde Drexler at shooting guard and wanted size, so they rolled the dice on a 7'1" center out of Kentucky. Bowie had missed 2 full college seasons with leg injuries, but still impressed scouts enough to get picked ahead of a generational scorer. In hindsight, that's the move that launched 1,000 what-ifs. Bowie played 10 seasons and averaged just under 11 points a game, but his career was derailed by injuries. Meanwhile, Jordan, well, he became Jordan. 6 titles, 5 MVP awards, and the league's biggest global icon. Bowie was solid when healthy, but the decision became the cautionary tale of all cautionary tales. It wasn't about Bowie being bad, it was about Jordan being inevitable. Tracy McGrady's 13 points in 33 seconds. With just 44 seconds left, the Rockets trailed by 8. Then McGrady detonated. He buried a 3, stole the inbounds, hit another while getting fouled, and sank the free throw. Suddenly, it was a 1-point game. Tim Duncan bricked 2 free throws, and McGrady pulled up again, drilled it over Bruce Bowen. 1 more steal, 2 more free throws, and the Rockets somehow led by 2. Final score, 81-80. McGrady finished with 33 points, 5 threes, and 2 steals, all while hitting every clutch shot he took. His true shooting, 53.6%, and in those final 33 seconds, he did not miss. It wasn't a playoff game, but it felt bigger. That stretch flipped win probability, stunned the Spurs, and gave McGrady the most legendary 33 seconds of any player's career. Kawhi Leonard Game 7 buzzer beater. With the score tied at 94 seconds left and the season on the line, Kawhi Leonard took the ball, sprinted to the right corner, rose over Joel Embiid, and launched. The shot bounced on the rim 4 times before dropping. It was the first Game 7 buzzer beater in the league history, and it sent the Raptors to the Eastern Conference Finals. Leonard played 43 minutes, dropped 41 points, grabbed 8 boards, and made 16 of 39 shots. His true shooting sat at 48.2%, but none of that mattered once that shot fell. The Raptors won 92-90, and that one shot became the moment. It led to a title, the first in franchise history. That bounce, those 4 bounces, turned a good team into champions and turned Kawhi into a playoff legend forever. Magic Johnson's HIV announcement. On November 7, 1991, Magic Johnson stood before cameras at the Forum and told the world he had HIV. At 32, he'd won 5 titles, 3 MVPs, and just led the Lakers to the finals. But everything changed. The announcement stunned the league and the public. He retired immediately, wanting to protect his health and educate others. 20 million people watched it live. Hotline calls about AIDS spiked by 1,000%. Johnson said he didn't have AIDS, just HIV, and promised to live a long life helping others. His diagnosis shattered stereotypes and changed how America talked about the virus. The NBA backed him, the public rallied, and he even returned to win MVP at the All-Star Game in gold at the Olympics. Magic's stats were elite, but what he did off the court, that's what made him immortal. Bill Russell's 11 championships. In just 13 seasons, Bill Russell won 11 titles with the Boston Celtics. That includes an 8-year streak from 1959 to 1966 that's never been matched. He wasn't about scoring. He averaged just over 15 points, but his 22 rebounds per game say everything. In the playoffs, that number jumped to nearly 25. He was a 5-time MVP and a 12-time All-Star. But what stands out is how he led. He coached while playing, won 2 more titles doing it, and broke barriers as the league's first black head coach. The Finals MVP trophy, it's named after him now. He wasn't flashy, but he won more than anyone else. Over 900 games, he grabbed over 21,000 rebounds and changed the game with defense. Russell didn't chase stats. He just won everything and then kept winning. Isaiah Thomas's Dream Team snub. In 1992, the Dream Team formed without one of the era's best point guards, Isaiah Thomas. A 2-time champion and finals MVP, Thomas averaged over 9 assists and 16 points during the 1990-91 season, even while battling a wrist injury. Yet he was left off the roster. Rumors swirled that Michael Jordan, still sour from the Pistons' bad boys tactics and that infamous walk-off, pushed for Thomas's exclusion. Stockton and Magic were selected instead, with college player Christian Laettner rounding out the squad. Chuck Daly, Thomas' coach, didn't fight it publicly. Chemistry and marketability were priorities, and Thomas didn't fit the clean image. His snub became the biggest controversy of that team. The Dream Team won gold easily, but Thomas's absence still hangs over that legacy. An elite player left off for reasons that weren't just basketball. Chris Paul trade veto. On December 8, 2011, the Lakers had a deal to land Chris Paul. A 3-team trade was set. Paul to the Lakers, Pau to Houston, and the Hornets would get 4 players and a pick. But then, boom, David Stern, acting as owner of the Hornets, vetoed it. His reason? Basketball reasons. The league didn't want the Hornets stuck with aging contracts, and other owners hated the idea of the Lakers stacking stars right after a lockout aimed at balance. Days later, Paul was shipped to the Clippers instead. The Lakers never recovered. Lamar Odom demanded a trade, Pau felt blindsided, and the super team idea unraveled. They tried to pivot with Steve Nash and Dwight Howard, but that flamed out fast. Stern's veto reshaped the West, launched Lob City, and left Lakers fans wondering what might have been if the league had just stayed out of it. Kevin Durant joins the Warriors. On July 4th, 2016, Kevin Durant dropped a bomb. He was signing with the Warriors. Just weeks earlier, he'd lost to them in the Western Conference Finals after blowing a 3-1 lead, so naturally he joined them. The backlash was immediate. Fans called him soft, burned jerseys, and roasted him online. But the numbers didn't care. Golden State went 67-15. Durant averaged 25, shot over 50%, and torched Cleveland in the finals. 35 points per game, finals MVP. They ran through the playoffs 16-1. Durant did it again the next year. 2 rings, 2 finals MVPs, and a legacy forever debated. His move rewrote free agency, fueled the super team era, and tilted the league's balance. Love it or hate it, Durant's jump to a 73-win team changed the NBA more than any signing this century. Kobe's last game. Kobe dropped 60 points in his final NBA appearance, closing out 20 years with the Lakers in ridiculous fashion. He took 50 shots, nailed 22, and outscored the Jazz in the fourth quarter by himself. The guy was 37 and still cooked for 42 minutes. He hit 6 threes, grabbed 4 boards, and dished out 4 assists. The Lakers trailed by 15, but he went full Mamba and scored the team's final 17 points, including the game winner. The crowd at Staples went completely wild, over 18,000 fans losing their minds. That 60 was the most anyone scored all season, and it was his 6th career game with 60 or more. Nobody's ever ended a career like that. After the game, he gave a speech and said Mamba out, then dropped the mic. Nobody's forgetting that. The Lakers finished 17-65. We believe Warriors. That 07 Warriors squad was pure chaos in the best way. They barely squeaked into the playoffs at 42-40, ending a 12-year drought. Then they took down the top-seeded Mavericks, who had 67 wins, the first 8 seed to ever do that in a 7-game series. Their style? All gas. A 99 pace, tons of threes, and no traditional center. Baron Davis was everywhere, scoring over 25 per game in the playoffs, while Steven Jackson locked in on defense. Oracle Arena felt like a concert. Those yellow shirts and wild crowds were part of the show. They shot over 2,100 threes that season, a decade ahead of the curve. They fell to Utah after, but that one magical round changed everything. It wasn't a fluke. It was a blueprint for the Warriors dynasty that came just a few years later. Jimmy Butler's Timberwolves practice. Jimmy showed up to Timberwolves practice after demanding a trade and lit the place on fire. He ran with the third-string guys and torched the starters, including Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. He didn't just win, he dominated. He talked trash nonstop, barking at teammates, coaches, even general manager Scott Layden. He reportedly shouted, "You can't win without me," right in Layden's face. The starters looked stunned. It was chaotic, uncomfortable, and honestly legendary. Afterward, Butler gave an interview where he admitted the outburst happened and said it was just his raw competitive energy. The next day, practice was canceled. The Wolves shut everything down. Butler was traded to the Sixers a month later. That moment became infamous, not just for the drama, but for how clearly it showed the fracture between Butler and the Timberwolves culture. That practice wasn't just a message, it was a statement. 1999, Knicks finals run. The Knicks sneaked into the playoffs as the 8th seed with a 27-23 record in a lockout-shortened season. Nobody gave them a shot. Then Allen Houston hit a wild game winner to knock out Miami. They swept Atlanta and took down Indiana, even after Patrick Ewing tore his Achilles. Larry Johnson's 4-point play became an instant classic. Suddenly, they were in the finals, the first 8th seed ever to get there. Latrell Sprewell carried the scoring, Marcus Camby held down the paint, and Jeff Van Gundy clung to legs like he coached for his life. They fought hard against the Spurs, but Tim Duncan dominated with over 27 points and 14 rebounds per game. New York dropped the series in 5, but that run is still legendary. Grit, chaos, clutch shots. That team lived up to the city it represented. Finals cramps. Game 1 of the 2014 Finals turned into chaos when the air conditioning inside the Spurs arena broke down, pushing temps above 90 degrees. LeBron James tried to power through it, but late in the fourth quarter, the cramps hit hard. He had 33 points before his body just shut down. He tried to check back in, but his leg wouldn't let him move. Fans saw him carried off the court, and the takes came flying. People questioned his toughness, like dehydration suddenly made him soft. The Heat fell apart after he left, and the Spurs ran away with the win. The guy was cooking all night before the Heat, literal Heat, stopped him. It became one of the weirdest finals moments ever. Not because he cramped, but because people acted like that wasn't human. The man couldn't walk, and people called him weak. Nate Robinson's slam dunk contest reign. Nate was 5'9" and still soared over giants. In '06, he jumped over Spud Webb to win his first dunk contest, honoring the legend who stood just 2 inches shorter. 3 years later, he went full showman. Wearing a green Knicks jersey, he leapt over 6'11" Dwight Howard, who was dressed as Superman. The crowd lost it. That dunk and his Crypto Nate nickname won him title number 2. In 2010, he edged out DeMar with a reverse off the backboard dunk, earning 51% of the fan vote. That made Nate the first player to win 3 slam dunk contests. It wasn't just hops. It was the flair, the guts, and the timing. He turned dunk night into a performance. Against taller competition every time, he didn't just belong. He stole the spotlight. Short guy, big legacy, triple crown, Thunder's Big 3 era. From '09 to 2012, Durant, Westbrook, and Harden turned Oklahoma City into a problem. 3 future MVPs under 24, lighting teams up and reaching the finals in just their 3rd year together. Durant led the league in scoring, Westbrook was a one-man fast break, and Harden ran the bench unit like a starter. Their 2012 team posted a 109.8 offensive rating and a plus 6.6 net rating. They beat the Spurs in the West, but got handled by Miami in the finals. Then came the trade. Harden wanted a bigger role and a bit more cash, but the Thunder didn't budge. He was gone, and so was the dynasty. That trio put up a combined 110 points in 1 game. Imagine that, over a decade. Instead, we got a what if. Still hurts. Still historic. Klay Thompson's 37-point quarter. On January 23, 2015, Klay detonated. He dropped 37 points in 1 quarter, still the most ever. He didn't miss a single shot. 13 for 13 from the field, 9 for 9 from deep, 2 for 2 from the line. That's 100% across the board. The Kings couldn't stop him, couldn't even slow him down. He scored 37 of the Warriors' 41 third-quarter points. In the final 3 minutes and 3 seconds, he outscored Sacramento 18-3 by himself. Oracle went berserk. It wasn't just buckets. It was a flamethrower session. The previous quarter record was 33. He broke it while blinking. He also set the record for threes in a quarter with 9. That performance didn't just electrify the game, it defined the Warriors' eventual title run. And honestly, no one's come close to touching it since. Nuggets double comeback in the bubble. In 2020, inside the NBA bubble, the Nuggets pulled off something no one had ever done. They came back from 2 separate 3-1 deficits in the same postseason. First, against Utah, Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell went nuclear, combining for 475 points across 7 games. Murray dropped 50 in 2 games, then Jokic sealed Game 7 with a hook shot to win 80-78. Then came the Clippers, down 3-1 again. Denver roared back. Murray poured in 40 in Game 7, while Jokic casually posted a 16, 22, and 13 triple-double. Kawhi and Paul George disappeared, and the Nuggets rolled 104-89. It was Denver's first trip to the Western Conference Finals since '09. That run wasn't luck. It was grit, fire, and a whole lot of Jamal Murray turning into a flamethrower. Bill Walton's 77 Finals Masterclass. In the 77 Finals, Bill Walton dragged the Blazers out of a 2-0 hole and into history. Portland rattled off 4 straight wins to stun the Sixers, and Walton put on an all-time clinic. He averaged 18.5 points, 19 boards, 5 assists, nearly 4 blocks, and a steal per game. That's not a stat line. It's a full-time job. In the closeout Game 6, Walton dropped 20 points, pulled down 23 rebounds, dished 7 assists, and swatted 8 shots. His fingerprints were on everything. Game by game, it was the same. 28 and 20 here, 20 and 18 there. He neutralized the Sixers' firepower with a mix of finesse and fury. The guy was a one-man basketball ecosystem. That title is still Portland's only ring, and Walton was the reason. Dominance, balance, and one beautiful basketball brain. Nets failed, super team. The Brooklyn Nets threw everything at the wall from 2019 to 2023, hoping a trio of Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and James Harden would stick. Durant came in fresh off an Achilles tear, and by the time Harden showed up in early 2021, the dream was in motion. at least on paper. They gave up serious assets to get him, but chemistry took the day off. The three of them only managed to play 16 games together. Kyrie missed a chunk of time because of the vaccine rules. Harden got fed up, and by the time Simmons rolled in, he did not even play. Brooklyn still made the playoffs in back-to-back years, but flamed out fast. They never even made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. The trio's combined contracts ate up over 68% of the salary cap. By early 2023, the whole thing unraveled. Durant went to Phoenix, Kyrie to Dallas, and Harden was already in Philadelphia. It was an expensive, wild experiment that didn't pan out, and even the players admitted it. Injuries, timing, and flat-out bad luck. This one's going in the books as a what could have been. Jason Terry's championship tattoo. Back in October of 2010, Jason Terry decided to bet on himself and the Mavericks, literally. During a team gathering at Deshaun Stevenson's house with a tattoo artist conveniently present, Terry got the Larry O'Brien trophy inked on his right bicep. Yeah, before the season even started. It wasn't a joke either. He fully believed they had the pieces to win it all. Some teammates, including Stevenson, thought he'd lost his mind. But that tattoo, it became a talking point all season. And when Dallas made their playoff run, that arm showed up. In the Western semifinals, Terry lit up the Lakers with 32 points, draining 9 threes. Fast forward to the finals, he dropped 27 in the clincher against Miami, helping Dallas grab their first title. The tattoo went from weird flex to iconic symbol. He never removed it. He called it destiny. Ruben Patterson, known during his career as a defense specialist. Patterson's life off the court looked more like a cautionary tale than a highlight reel. It started in 2000 when he got into a fight outside a Cleveland nightclub and broke a guy's jaw because he thought his car got scratched. He got a misdemeanor assault charge, had to cough up a $1,000 fine, and serve 80 hours of community service. The league suspended him for 3 games, and that was just the beginning. Later that same year, things got darker. Patterson was playing for Seattle when his nanny accused him of forcing her into a sexual act. The incident happened in his own home while his kids were there. He eventually entered an offered plea to attempted third-degree rape, which let him avoid admitting guilt, while still acknowledging there was enough evidence to convict. He spent 15 days in jail, got 2 years of probation, had to pay $5,000, and had to register as a sex offender. Then in 2002, he got arrested again, this time for domestic assault. His wife had visible injuries, but after she refused to press charges, prosecutors dropped the case. In 2007, he failed to register as a sex offender. When he moved, that got him another $1,000 fine. 3 years later, he was caught driving drunk in Ohio with a blood alcohol level of 0.117. And in 2019, he turned himself in for owing over $100,000 in child support. All of this has overshadowed whatever legacy he hoped to leave behind. His name's now more tied to courtrooms than courts. Glenn Davis, known as Big Baby during his playing days, Davis went from hoisting a championship trophy to hauling around some serious legal baggage. Back in February of 2018, hotel staff at a Maryland Hampton Inn noticed a strong weed smell coming from his room. When police showed up, they found over 120 grams of marijuana, nearly $100,000 in cash, packaging materials, and a ledger that looked like it came straight from a drug dealer starter kit. Davis got slapped with 7 charges tied to drug possession and distribution, but instead of jail, he paid a $15,000 fine, and prosecutors dropped the charges. That wasn't the last chapter. In October of 2021, Davis got named in a major indictment involving fake health and dental claims submitted to the NBA's health plan. Investigators said he filed a claim for dental work in Beverly Hills while he was busy traveling between Las Vegas and Paris. So unless dentists started offering in-flight procedures, it didn't add up. In November of 2023, a Manhattan jury convicted Davis of healthcare fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. It was not a small case either. By May of 2024, he was sentenced to 40 months in federal prison. On top of that, he owed $80,000 in restitution, had to attend financial management classes, and got slapped with 3 years of supervised release, which includes drug treatment. And in true odd fashion, he got a 7-week delay to report to prison. Why? So he could finish filming a documentary about himself. Apparently, that's supposed to help him pay the money back. The whole thing's a wild spiral, from a ring to a rap sheet. Rasheed Bird, once known for his towering 7'1" frame and short stint in pro basketball, Bird's name is now tied to one of the ugliest criminal convictions in recent memory. On March 1st, 2024, he got sentenced to 90 years to life in California State Prison for a series of violent sexual assaults across Los Angeles and Santa Clara counties between 2015 and 2020. His history wasn't clean even before that. Back in 2005, Bird got arrested in Washington State for sexually assaulting a young woman. Then in 2010, he was convicted again, this time involving a different victim. Investigators say he used his identity as a former athlete and actor to lure in victims. He'd charm them, build trust, then turn violent. Detective Dara Brown said it plainly: he started out charismatic, then things turned dark fast. Bird was finally arrested on September 20th, 2020, after a woman came forward and accused him of assaulting her in 2019. The charges piled up. His bail was set at over $4 million, and he sat in custody the entire time, leading up to sentencing. When the court finally handed down that 90-year sentence, it marked the end of a long and brutal investigation. As far as his background goes, he played just 22 games for the Los Angeles Defenders back in the 2008 to 2009 season. He also had small acting credits in a basketball comedy and a documentary, but all that's been swallowed up by the severity of his crimes. The Los Angeles Police Department thanked the victims who stepped forward and said they're still open to hearing from anyone else. Bird's career, reputation, and freedom, all gone. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Kermit Washington, once an NBA All-Star, Washington's downfall wasn't on the court. It was in his so-called charity. In July of 2018, he got sentenced to 6 years in federal prison for pulling nearly $1 million from a fake humanitarian front. His organization, the Sixth Man Foundation, also known as Project Contact Africa, promised to help families, HIV-positive children, and medical clinics across Africa. But instead of fulfilling those missions, Washington funneled donations into personal luxuries. He used the money for vacations, shopping, and even paid for plastic surgery for his girlfriend. He didn't stop there. While working with the National Basketball Players Association, Washington set up an illegal referral scheme. He referred players to attorney Ronald Jack Mix, who then sent over $155,000 in donations to the foundation. Those donations were really just referral payments, and Washington conveniently forgot to mention them to the IRS. On top of that, he accepted over $82,000 from Reza Davachi and used those funds the same way, purely for himself. To keep the scheme alive, Washington committed identity theft by using someone else's information in filings and lied repeatedly on his tax return. In November of 2017, he finally pleaded guilty to aggravated identity theft and filing a false tax return. A few months later, the sentence came down: 6 years in prison and nearly $970,000 in restitution. He turned what could have been a powerful legacy into a cautionary tale. The charity, the connections, the cause, all used as a front. What was meant to help others ended up helping himself, and it cost him everything he'd built after basketball. Reggie Harding, the first player ever drafted into the NBA straight from high school, and somehow his story still ended up as a full-blown tragedy. Born in Detroit in 1942, Harding was a high school legend. He towered over the competition, literally and figuratively, averaging 31 points and 20 rebounds in his senior year. The Pistons took him in 1962, and just like that, history was made. But it didn't last. Harding bounced between teams, including the Pistons, Bulls, and Pacers, but off-court chaos followed him everywhere. It started young. At 17, he got caught stealing a truck and was put on probation. A year later, he was charged with statutory rape. He admitted to the act, but claimed it was consensual. He was acquitted, but that wasn't the last time his name showed up in police reports. That same year, Florence Ballard of the Supremes accused Harding of raping her at knife point. No charges were filed, but the incident stayed with her for the rest of her life. Then in 1965, he assaulted a police officer during a fight over a parking ticket. That earned him a $2,000 fine, the biggest fine in pro basketball at that point. After his NBA career ended, he wasn't done finding trouble. In 1969, he got locked up for carrying a concealed weapon and served 2 years in prison. By 1972, at just 30 years old, Harding was shot and killed by someone he considered a friend after an argument turned violent. From courtrooms to prison cells to a street corner in Detroit, Harding's story is more heartbreak than highlight. What started as groundbreaking turned into a grim example of wasted talent and personal destruction. Byron Houston, once a standout at Oklahoma State and an NBA forward, Houston's post-basketball years have been a non-stop tour through courtrooms and jail cells. His legal troubles started early, but the real downward spiral kicked off in the early 2000s. In 2001 and again in 2003, he pleaded guilty to indecent exposure. By March of 2003, he was hit with 4 separate counts and got slapped with sex offender registration in Oklahoma for 10 years. That wasn't the end. In June of 2007, he got arrested again, this time for public indecency at a busy intersection. a woman reported seeing him masturbating in his car. When police showed up, he was literally undressed from the waist down, with his underwear and shoes on the floorboard. Not subtle. This violated his probation, and in September of that year, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. His defense tried to argue that he suffered from bipolar disorder and post-traumatic stress from childhood abuse. They claimed he couldn't afford medication. The judge listened, but wasn't buying a pass. He said Houston had been given enough chances and the time for punishment had arrived. In 2006, he was pulled from a youth basketball camp at Oklahoma State when his sex offender status came to light. Even though his supervised probation had ended, he was still banned from being around kids. And just when you thought things couldn't get worse, in 2011, he got charged with animal cruelty in Logan County. The details were vague, but the arrest added yet another page to an already messy rap sheet. Mental health was a part of the story, but so were repeated offenses. The second act of Houston's life became a full-time disaster. Steve Francis, once known as the franchise for his explosive play with Houston, Francis's life off the court turned into a highlight reel of bad decisions. It started in June of 2016 at a restaurant in Florida. After asking a bartender for help finding his car keys, he took a flashlight and instead entered a woman's unlocked BMW in the parking lot. He took a diamond ring, a wedding band, cash, a wallet, over $7,000 worth of personal stuff. 2 days later, he walked into the police station with the stolen items and said, "I just robbed somebody. Take me to jail." But since no crime had been reported yet, officers had to let him go. A few months later, in November of that same year, he got pulled over for speeding in Houston. Deputies said he was uncooperative and clearly drunk. They found 22 grams of marijuana in his car and an open bottle of liquor. To top it off, he allegedly threatened one of the officers. That led to charges for driving while intoxicated, marijuana possession, and retaliation. In December, the Florida burglary caught up with him. He turned himself in and was booked into jail. By March of 2017, he cut a deal. He got a conditional discharge, 50 hours of community service, and a fine of $7,300. But he wasn't done. In March of 2018, police arrested him again, this time for public intoxication at a hotel bar in Burbank. Later that year, he opened up about his alcohol abuse, admitting that he lost his identity and spiraled hard. He denied using crack cocaine, but made it clear the drinking wrecked his career. The fall from all-star to arrestee has been messy, public, and rough to watch. Robert Whaley, drafted by the Utah Jazz in 2005. His time in the NBA was short, and his time in the system was much, much longer. His post-basketball life took a hard turn straight into legal trouble, starting in 2008 when he was convicted in Michigan for operating a drug house. Not exactly a smart retirement plan. He got sentenced to probation, but that didn't last. By January of 2009, Whaley violated the terms and disappeared, turning himself into a fugitive. The guy went off the grid, like he thought he was in a spy movie. But reality hit in March of 2010 when he was arrested in Salt Lake County. And if that wasn't enough, during booking, officers found marijuana on him. Not hidden well, clearly. He got shipped back to Michigan to deal with the mess he left behind. That landed him a 2-year stay behind bars from 2010 to 2012. Then, because one criminal chapter apparently wasn't enough, he showed up again in the police blotter in May of 2015. This time, it was for breaking into a Marriott hotel in Layton, Utah. He pled guilty to felony burglary, and in March of 2016, he got sentenced to 60 days in county jail. So from operating a drug house to hotel burglary, it's been a steady drop-off since he left the NBA. There's no scandalous twist, no misunderstood genius, just a guy who traded a court for a cell and never found his way back. The only stats that matter now are charges, time served, and missed opportunity. Antoine Walker, a former All-Star and NBA champion, Walker earned over $108 million during his career, but after retirement, he managed to dribble straight into a financial and legal disaster. It kicked off in July of 2009 when he got charged with 3 felony counts for writing bad checks tied to gambling debts. He owed more than $800,000 to Caesars Palace, Planet Hollywood, and Red Rock Resort. Under Nevada law, those unpaid markers counted as bad checks. He got arrested at Harrah's in South Lake Tahoe during a celebrity golf tournament, which definitely wasn't the kind of headline he was hoping for. He first pleaded not guilty in June of 2010, but changed course in June of 2011. He admitted to 1 felony count and got 5 years of probation. As part of the deal, he had to pay back more than $750,000 and was banned from gambling during his probation. Around the same time, things got even messier. In May of 2010, he filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Florida. His paperwork showed $12.7 million in debt against just 4 $8.3 million in assets. Even his championship ring from 2006 had to go. It sold for just over $21,000. Walker later admitted he blew $1 million in just 6 weeks in Vegas. He blamed a flashy lifestyle, gambling losses, and failed real estate deals for his collapse. But instead of disappearing, he turned the wreckage into a second act. He joined Morgan Stanley's sports division and now mentors athletes on money management and how not to follow in his footsteps. A rough fall, sure, but at least now he's using the scars to help others. Tate George, once a college basketball hero with a legendary buzzer beater at Connecticut, George turned his post-NBA years into a courtroom saga centered around one thing: fraud. After a short NBA stint with the Nets and Bucks, he founded the George Group, a flashy-sounding real estate firm that claimed to control over $500 million in assets. Spoiler alert, it didn't. From 2005 to 2011, George managed to convince investors, including NBA players Charlie Villanueva and Brevin Knight, and even The Apprentice winner Randall Pinkett, that their money was safe. He told them funds were being held in trust accounts and promised guaranteed returns. Instead, he pulled a Ponzi classic. He paid off, earlier, investors with new money, and then used the rest for himself. Home upgrades, a birthday bash for his daughter, and even a vanity reality video project. Because if you're going to commit fraud, you might as well do it in style, apparently. In September of 2013, a jury convicted him on 4 counts of wire fraud. Each count came with a 20-year max. But in January of 2016, the court handed him a 9-year federal prison sentence. He also got stuck with $2.55 million in restitution and 3 years of supervised release. George tried to appeal, blaming prosecutors and calling witnesses liars. In April of 2017, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals said no. Every charge and sentence stayed locked in place. What could have been a legacy of college glory and pro-promise ended with a real estate scam, a prison term, and a reputation that will never rebound. His buzzer beater might have been clutch, but in real life, the clock ran out hard. Allen Anderson, the former NBA journeyman, played 8 seasons across 5 teams and a laundry list of countries, but what really stuck was his role in a benefits fraud scheme that landed him in federal prison. Between 2017 and 2019, Anderson submitted about $121,000 in fake medical and dental claims to the NBA Players' Health and Welfare Benefit Plan. The kicker? None of those services ever happened. He didn't just scam the system for himself. Anderson helped others join in, pushing total fraudulent claims to around $710,000. When some of his co-conspirators hit snags with reimbursement, Anderson told them to just submit forged letters from doctors. He even arranged for them to visit a physician in Las Vegas after hours, just to fake enough documentation to make things look legit. In October of 2021, Anderson was one of 18 former players charged in connection with the scam. It was a $4 million mess in total, spread across multiple defendants. His part may not have been the biggest, but it was deliberate and sustained. On February 10th, 2023, a federal judge handed him 24 months in prison. He also had to give up $121,000 and pay the same amount back as restitution. The sentence was meant to send a message: retired athletes don't get a pass when it comes to fraud. Anderson's professional resume included NBA games and international stints across Europe and China. But now, what people remember most is that he went from running plays on the hardwood to running scams on paper. The fall was fast, and the consequences were real. Jason Caff, 2 NBA titles with Michael Jordan and the Bulls, and still managed to find his name more often in legal documents than highlight reels after retirement. His post-career life unraveled into a mess of child support lawsuits, arrests, bankruptcy, and rehab. It started with the numbers: 10 children by 8 different women. That's not a stat line you want on your resume. At one point, he owed more than $200,000 in unpaid child support and legal fees, and at least one mother said she was shorted nearly $100,000. In August of 2007, Caffey filed for bankruptcy, claiming $1.9 million in debt. The court dismissed it the next year when he couldn't put together a plan to pay it off. Jail time followed, not for a flagrant foul, but for failing to pay what he owed. Things hit another low in May of 2010 when he got arrested in Mobile, Alabama for domestic violence. He allegedly hit and kicked a woman during a dispute and was released on $1,000 bail. Another mugshot, another headline. But Caffey didn't vanish completely. He admitted to struggling with depression and anxiety and checked into a 45-day rehab program in Florida in 2016. Since then, he's tried to clean up the wreckage. He co-wrote a book aimed at teaching young boys about maturity and consequences. He went back to school and plans to graduate from Alabama State University with a degree in physical education in December 2024. Caffey's story isn't clean or heroic, but it's a real-time recovery from years of personal chaos and legal fire. Chris Gatling, once an NBA All-Star with a solid pro career, Gatling's post-basketball path somehow veered straight into fraud territory. In 2013, he pleaded guilty to theft and forgery after squatting in a luxury home in Paradise Valley, Arizona. He didn't just live there without permission, he tried to rent the place out to actual tenants while having no legal right to even be in it. For that bold move, he got 4 years of probation. But instead of lying low, Gatling went bigger. While still on probation in 2015, he was arrested again, this time for a nationwide fraud scheme involving credit card theft and online scam. He ran sketchy online businesses that gathered personal and financial info, then used it to rack up charges. One of the victims, a Scottsdale gym owner, lost $90,000 and had to shut down her studio. The fraud didn't stop there. In 2017, Gatling got sentenced to 2.5 years in prison for a telemarketing scam targeting seniors. He and others sold fake websites to vulnerable people, pocketed the money, and walked away. Well, until the prison sentence hit. Along with that time behind bars, he also had to pay $167,000 in restitution and serve 3 years of probation after release. From an NBA All-Star to a squatter, scam artist, and inmate, Gatling's post-retirement life became one long con. The stats are gone, the game is over, and now the numbers that follow him are charges, restitution, and time served. Not exactly the legacy you'd want to hang on a jersey. Shawn Kemp, the 6-time All-Star known for his ferocious dunks with Seattle, found himself back in the headlines in March of 2023, but this time for pulling a trigger in a Tacoma Mall parking lot. It all started when someone broke into Kemp's car at a concert in Seattle, taking his phone, business keys, and sports memorabilia. Like a real-life detective with no badge, Kemp used a tracking app to chase down his stolen phone to a Toyota 4Runner in Tacoma. He showed up ready for a confrontation, and that's exactly what happened. An argument broke out, shots were fired, and though no one was hurt, 2 vehicles ended up with bullet holes. Kemp fired his weapon during the encounter, claiming he'd been shot at first. Either way, it was chaos in a parking lot, and it got him charged with first-degree assault and drive-by shooting. But in May of 2025, he struck a deal. He pleaded guilty to second-degree assault. Prosecutors acknowledged there was some element of self-defense. They recommended 9 months in jail, 1 year of supervised release, and restitution. Sentencing set for August 22nd. As part of the plea, Kemp agreed to give up his gun rights and provide a DNA sample for law enforcement databases. Meanwhile, one of the men involved in the altercation, currently doing 7 years for another shooting, filed a civil suit against Kemp, claiming emotional distress. Of course he did. Since then, Kemp's been trying to spin the whole thing forward. His legal team says he wants to be a voice against gun violence and set an example. From rim-rocking dunks to restitution payments, Kemp's story keeps rewriting itself, one courtroom chapter at a time. Glenn Rice Jr., once a rising prospect with NBA bloodline, his career fell apart under a long trail of arrests, nightclub chaos, and firearm charges. The lowlights started stacking early, but things hit a new level in July of 2016. He was arrested in Georgia after punching former Tulane player Jordan Callahan so hard he broke his jaw. Rice then grabbed 2 bags from their car, and when police caught up with him, they found almost $3,000 in cash, 6 phones, weed, and enough firearms to arm a small squad. An AK-47, a Taurus 38 Special, and another gun stashed in his Porsche. That got him felony robbery, aggravated battery, and possession charges. But that wasn't the first time his name landed on a booking sheet. In October of 2015, he got shot in the leg during a fight at an Atlanta restaurant co-owned by rapper T.I. Instead of heading to the hospital like a normal gunshot victim, he was arrested for reckless conduct. Police found a stolen firearm and 240 grams of marijuana in a bag he ditched. Smooth move. Then came the international chapter. In 2019, while playing in New Zealand, he got arrested for assaulting someone at an Auckland bar. The team suspended him, brought him back, and then dropped him again after he got arrested a second time for violating bail. And in 2017, he was arrested again in Miami after allegedly punching a strip club bouncer twice. That stunt got him 6 months of probation and community service. From promising prospect to international problem case, Rice managed to turn every opportunity into a headline for all the wrong reasons. Guns, punches, clubs. His playbooks got everything but basketball. Tony Farmer. At one point, he was a top 100 high school recruit with offers pouring in and a future that looked NBA bound. Then in 2012, it all collapsed. That May, he got indicted on charges of kidnapping, assault, and robbery after a violent incident involving his former girlfriend in Bedford Heights, Ohio. By August, he pleaded guilty to all 3 charges and was sentenced to 3 years in prison. That courtroom moment went viral, not because of the case details, but because of his stunned reaction when he realized he was actually going to jail. He served the full sentence and got out in June of 2015. From there, he tried to revive what was left of his basketball dream. He played 2 seasons at Lee College in Texas, a junior college far removed from the high-profile schools that once recruited him. Still, he kept at it and launched a pro career overseas with stops in Mexico, Argentina, and the Middle East. But just when it looked like he might stay focused on hoops, trouble found him again. In September of 2020, authorities in Kenner, Louisiana, issued an arrest warrant for him on a charge of felony domestic abuse battery. Another case, another headline, another derailment. Farmer's story is a familiar one. Massive talent, early mistakes, and a second act built far from the spotlight. But his legal troubles, especially that early conviction, dragged down a trajectory that could have been something entirely different. Instead of NBA arenas, it's been international gyms and courtrooms, both kinds. Sedale Threat, known for steady point guard play and a decent NBA career, but his post-retirement legacy reads more like a courtroom transcript than a stat sheet. In 2000, Threat was sentenced to 6 months in prison after pleading guilty to failing to pay child support. This wasn't just a small clerical error. He had multiple outstanding child support orders in different jurisdictions. One court flat out rejected a plea deal that would have given him probation. Instead, they handed him jail time. Earlier that same year, in April, he agreed to pay nearly $172,000 in overdue support for 6 of his children. But that only scratched the surface. Federal prosecutors in Arizona also had their eyes on him for similar charges related to even more unpaid child support. At one point, Threat was believed to have fathered at least 14 children. 14. His son, Sedale Threat Jr., a former college football quarterback, spoke publicly about their fractured relationship. He said he loved his name and loved his father, but didn't like him. One of the only lessons he claimed to have learned from him, how not to be a father. By 2012, Threat had moved to Melbourne, Australia, where he and another son, also named Sedale Threat Jr., just to keep things extra confusing, were running a basketball school. So from unpaid child support in multiple states to running drills in the Southern Hemisphere, it's been quite the pivot. The man played over a decade in the league, but couldn't handle life off the court. His post-NBA years became a cautionary tale about responsibility, consequences, and names that echo for the wrong reasons. Dante Green, a former first-round NBA pick, and Syracuse standout, Green's post-hoops chapter took a wild turn in November of 2022 when he was arrested for attempting to rob a gas station in Goshen, Indiana. According to court records, he walked into a Phillips 66, demanded cash from the clerk, and made threatening gestures. Surveillance video captured him pacing the store, pulling stuff from his pockets, stripping off his shirt, and lunging at the poor cashier like it was some kind of low-budget action scene. When the clerk tried to call the police, Green allegedly told him not to. That plan didn't work out though, because employees from a nearby Taco Bell saw what was going down and called the cops anyway. Green was arrested on the spot and charged with robbery, intimidation, and interfering with the reporting of a crime. At the time of his arrest, Green was still loosely involved in basketball, having played overseas in places like China, the UAE, and the Dominican Republic. He also popped up in the Big Three League as recently as May 2022, co-captaining the Killer 3S. His legal situation escalated quickly. The robbery charge alone could carry up to 6 years in prison. His trial was originally set for February of 2025, but got pushed to May 5th. So instead of gearing up for another basketball season, he's prepping for court. Green played 4 seasons in the NBA, mostly with the Kings, averaging just over 6 points per game. Not spectacular, but steady. Now he's known more for a bizarre gas station incident than anything he ever did on the hardwood. Another case of a career undone by choices far off the court. Steve Logan. Once a college star at the University of Cincinnati with NBA potential, Logan's post-basketball chapter got derailed fast. In August of 2009, U.S. Marshals arrested him in Lakewood, Ohio, on serious charges: strong-arm rape and gross sexual imposition stemming from alleged incidents in Rocky River. The accusations involved 2 women, one who claimed Logan raped her and another who said he fondled her. But by April of 2010, the rape charges were dismissed. Still, Logan didn't walk away clean. He pleaded guilty to a separate domestic violence charge involving the mother of his child. That case ended with a $250 fine. Small amount, big damage to his already fading public image. These legal issues followed him right into what should have been a celebratory moment. In 2010, Logan was inducted into the University of Cincinnati Athletics Hall of Fame, a major honor for a player who once lit up college hoops. But instead of attending the ceremony, he stayed away due to the cloud of pending legal trouble. From All-American hype to courtroom appearances, Logan's career has become another cautionary tale. The highlight reel stopped, the accolades faded, and what remains is a short, rocky list of what might have been. Terrence Williams, drafted 11th overall in 2009, Williams once looked like a versatile guard with long-term NBA upside. Instead, he became the ringleader in a healthcare fraud scheme so bold it could have been ripped from a crime drama. From 2017 to 2021, Williams orchestrated a multi-million-dollar plan to defraud the NBA players' health and welfare benefit plan. He recruited over 18 former players and even got a few medical professionals on board. He set up fake medical and dental claims, distributed phony invoices, and coached others on how to file them. The total damage? Over $5 million in false claims, with defendants pocketing about half. Williams himself collected more than $650,000 and took at least $300,000 in kickbacks. When things got shaky, he impersonated health plan officials to pressure others and protect the scam. In August of 2022, he pleaded guilty. A year later, in August of 2023, he got hit with a 10-year federal prison sentence, plus 3 years of supervised release. He was ordered to forfeit over $650,000 and pay back $2.5 million in restitution. Judge Valerie Caproni called him out directly for being the operations architect and exploiting his role as a former pro. Williams admitted it all, calling his choices stupidity and greed, and mentioned how it affected his 6 children. But remorse didn't change the sentence. He wasn't alone. Keon Dooling, Glenn Davis, and even a California dentist were also convicted. Williams just happened to be the one pulling the strings, a former lottery pick turned mastermind of medical fraud, trading his NBA career for a headline that reads more like a federal indictment. Charles Shackelford. He was the kind of player who could grab 26 rebounds in a single NBA game, then disappear into basketball's international underground and lead rebound stats all over Europe. Italy, Turkey, Greece, you name it, he dominated the glass. Even when he was dragging around arthritic knees, the guy was still pulling down more boards than anyone else. And somehow, the thing people remember most is him telling a reporter he was amphibious. Yeah, he meant ambidextrous, he just went with it. His college run at NC State was messy, got suspended for bad grades, then came back on what was basically an academic probation leash. He had to prove he could even show up to class. And then came the heat. Shackelford was tangled in point-shaving accusations that involved tens of thousands of dollars. They said he took money, not to throw games, but just to handle debts. A grand jury eventually tossed it due to lack of evidence, but that cloud never fully cleared. The off-court saga didn't slow down either. He picked up a marijuana charge in 1990, then in 2006 he was caught with cocaine, marijuana, and a concealed weapon. And that was only the warm-up. From lying about his identity during a crash to getting caught in a prescription drug sting, he seemed to find new ways to make the news for everything but basketball. He even landed in jail multiple times for dodging child support and breaking probation. Despite it all, he kept that same wild reputation. Rebounding beast overseas, quote machine on the mic, and forever misunderstood. Charles Shackelford left behind a trail of rebounds, arrest records, and one of the most famous misquotes in sports history. Tony Lavelli. He got drafted 4th overall by Boston in 1949, right out of Yale, where he scored 1,964 points and broke George Mikan's record. He was a 4-time All-American and ruled the Ivy League. But here's where it goes off script. He was a serious musician. He turned down Juilliard to play basketball, then told the Celtics he'd only sign if they paid him to play accordion at halftime. They agreed to $125 per game. That's not a joke. Boston needed fans. They were broke, attendance was bad, and suddenly you've got Lavelli playing Lady of Spain at halftime in his game jersey. No time to change, just straight from scoring to serenading. He did around 25 shows per season, even some on the road. And yeah, it worked. People showed up. The accordion saved the Celtics. On the court, he wasn't bad. He averaged 8.8 points in his rookie year with Boston, then 6.9 over his total career. That one-handed hook shot, old school and awkward, but effective. Then he moved to the Knicks to be closer to Juilliard and actually started taking classes during the 1950-51 season. After 2 seasons, he dropped the NBA and went full showbiz. He toured with the College All-Stars and Harlem Globetrotters, played accordion during breaks, and dropped albums like All-American Accordionist. He got into composing and performed nightclub and stage acts, where he literally jumped off stage mid-show, threw on a jersey, and started shooting. The guy wasn't just a player, he was a performer, the only pro baller to earn his roster spot partly because of music. He ended up in real estate, passed away in 1998, and left behind one of the wildest crossover careers ever. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Marvin Barnes. He got drafted second overall in 1974 but flipped the script and signed with the ABA Spirits of St. Louis instead. That move worked. He torched the league, won Rookie of the Year, made 2 All-Star teams, and dropped over 21 points and 13 rebounds a game. After the merger, he hit the NBA like a meteor, flashing greatness with the Pistons, Celtics, Clippers, and Braves, but never staying long. His combined career numbers were still solid, 16 points, 9 rebounds. But off-court chaos kept him from going higher. He once refused a flight from Louisville to St. Louis because it landed before it took off due to time zones. He said, "I ain't getting in no damn time machine," then drove. That's how committed he was to his own weird logic. Later that same year, he tried flying with a pistol and loose bullets in his bag. That got him 152 days behind bars. But that wasn't even his wildest moment. While playing for the Celtics, he admitted doing lines of cocaine under a towel during game. Yeah, on the bench. That level of self-sabotage made it impossible to keep a career together. After basketball, things got darker. He ended up homeless in San Diego, getting arrested for everything from burglary to trespassing to drug possession. His look? Fully pimped out. Fur coats, wide brim hats, and canes. He didn't dress like a player, he dressed like the main character in a blaxploitation movie. But underneath the style was a history of violence and drama. In high school, he tried to rob a bus. In college, he beat a teammate with a tire iron. For a guy with that much talent, he did everything possible to burn it down. Bad news. Barnes wasn't just a nickname, it was a prophecy. Mitch McGary. He was ranked the second best high school recruit in the entire country back in 2012. Big, skilled, and full of promise, he landed at Michigan and helped take them to the Final Four in 2013, even making the all-tournament team. Over his 47 college games, he put up nearly 8 points and 7 rebounds while shooting almost 60%. Then, just when things were peaking, he got suspended for marijuana and declared for the draft to dodge a season-long ban. Oklahoma City took him 21st overall in 2014, hoping talent would outweigh the trouble. But trouble followed. First came the injuries, foot issues, tibia problems, and concussion symptoms. Then came more weed suspensions, 2 of them that earned him 15 missed games and eventually a one-way ticket out of the league. He ended up playing just 52 NBA games total, averaging 4 points and 3 boards. Then he pulled a U-turn no one saw coming. At 24 years old, McGary left pro basketball to bowl. Yes, bowl. His mom had been at it for over 30 years, and apparently the gene transferred. He joined a sanctioned league, averaged 195 per game, and even posted a 703 series. That's serious bowling. Not just a guy messing around in rented shoes. He never ran from his mistakes. McGary flat out admitted to smoking weed, said it was part of college life, and claimed he learned from it. Maybe he did. Either way, he went from Final Four breakout to Thunder benchwarmer to competitive bowler in just a few years. That pivot was wild, but it was real. Mitch McGary didn't just exit the NBA. He packed his gear, grabbed a bowling ball, and found his next chapter down a very different lane. Dwayne Shinzius. The guy was 7 feet 2, drafted 24th in 1990, and played 10 NBA seasons across 6 teams. Injuries held him back, especially his back, but he still managed to carve out over 200 games in the league. His stats weren't eye-popping, averaging just under 3 points and 3 rebounds, but the man wasn't exactly going for subtle. Let's talk about the mullet. He rocked what he called the lobster, a legendary hairstyle that became his trademark. When the Spurs told him to cut it, he didn't just comply. He sent the chopped hair to the general manager in an envelope. It was equal parts rebellion and prank, and it defined how he operated. Loud, unbothered, and theatrical. He even ended up in a movie. Played a fictional Russian baller named Ivan in Eddie with Whoopi Goldberg. Total shift from NBA bench to Hollywood set, like it was no big deal. But that was Shinzius. Nothing was too weird. Then it got darker. He testified in court during Jason Williams' manslaughter case, saying he saw Williams shoot his own Rottweiler, not just once, twice. When Shinsius dragged the dog back as part of a bet, Williams allegedly pointed the shotgun at him too. That testimony put him right in the middle of one of the NBA's ugliest scandals. Back in college, he was just as wild. He quit the Florida team after a mullet dispute, swung a tennis racket near a nightclub, and refused to re-enter games when told. He didn't just clash with authority, he lit the fuse and walked away. Later in life, he battled a rare form of leukemia. He fought hard, underwent a bone marrow transplant, and even entered remission. But he passed away in 2012 at 43. Dwayne Shinsius was chaos, confidence, and curls. Never boring for a second. Rest in peace to a legend, Lloyd Daniels. He never played Division I ball. Never. Yet people were calling him the next Magic Johnson, the next Connie Hawkins. He was that good. Recruited by Jerry Tarkanian to UNLV, he got kicked off the team before playing a single minute. Arrested for trying to buy crack from an undercover cop. From top high school prospect to headline, cautionary tale, and he hadn't even made it to college tip-off. Then came the shooting. In 1989, he got hit 3 times in the chest in a drug dispute. Somehow, he survived, kept playing with bullet fragments in his body. His comeback? Unbelievable. He bounced around drug rehab, played overseas, and found himself back with Tarkanian in San Antonio. That's how he finally cracked into the NBA. No Division I, no draft combine, just raw, recycled talent. His rookie season with the Spurs wasn't a fluke. He averaged over 9 points and nearly 3 rebounds, dropping 26 points in his second NBA game. But that's where the highs started fading again. Drugs and alcohol didn't go away. His body and his conditioning couldn't keep up. He played just 200 games over 5 seasons with 6 different teams. After the NBA, the man became basketball's most well-traveled vagabond. 30 teams, 15 leagues, 9 countries. He didn't quit. He just kept moving. From the CBA to Canada to Europe and back, Lloyd Daniels was still suiting up as late as 2006. He made the league with no college pedigree, took bullets to the chest, battled addiction, and still found his way back to the court over and over. His story is chaos, resilience, and sheer street ball legend. Sweet Pea wasn't just a nickname. It was a myth wrapped in real scars and real buckets. Leon Smith, straight out of high school in Chicago, he averaged over 25 points and 14 rebounds a game before getting drafted 29th in 1999. The Spurs picked him, then flipped him to Dallas. But instead of making his debut, Smith unraveled in one of the most chaotic rookie meltdowns the NBA has ever seen. Just months after the draft, he swallowed around 250 aspirin, threw a rock through a car window, painted his face, and told police he was an Indian fighting Columbus. He ended up in a psychiatric ward. Not even a full day later, he got arrested twice. Once for threatening his girlfriend with a gun, and again for smashing windows and rear-ending another car. That got him more time under psychiatric evaluation, and just like that, the Mavericks cut him without a single game played. The deeper tragedy? Smith had been in foster care since age 5. He didn't have stability before the league, and certainly didn't find it after. He got 18 months probation for the spree, then faded into the minor leagues. But he didn't stop trying. In the CBA and IBL, he led the league in rebounds and blocks, and even earned second-team honors in 2002. His NBA return came in blips. 14 games with the Hawks, 1 game with Seattle, and then nothing. He never really shook the off-court trouble either. Legal issues, probation problems, it kept following him. His story popped back up in ESPN retrospective, showing just how deep the damage ran. Leon Smith wasn't just a bust, he was a cautionary tale. A teenage first-round pick who imploded on the national stage before he even suited up. His journey from high school prodigy to psychiatric patient is one of the NBA's most tragic turns. Eddie Johnson. He was a 2-time NBA All-Star with the Hawks, known for speed, defense, and scoring. In 10 seasons, he dropped over 15 points a game, added 5 assists, and made the all-defensive second team in 1980. He played 675 games and passed 10,000 career points. Then it all fell apart. He struggled with cocaine dating back to college. Rehab came in 1986, but he didn't complete mandatory treatment. That ended his NBA career in 1987, suspended and gone. After basketball, things spiraled fast. He was arrested nearly 100 times. Everything from burglary and assault to drug charges and fighting with police. There was no comeback, just a downward slide, and it didn't stop there. In 2006, Johnson broke into a Florida apartment and assaulted an 8-year-old girl. He was arrested, tried, and convicted of sexual battery, lewd molestation, and trespassing. In 2008, he was sentenced to life without parole. He spent his final years at Santa Rosa Correctional Institution. On October 26, 2020, he died in custody from an undisclosed illness. No redemption arc, no legacy cleanse, just a crash landing from all-star to inmate. What makes him so wild? He went from top-tier guard to convicted child predator. Not just another player with drug issues, he became one of the darkest stories in NBA history. He had talent, numbers, and acclaim, then lost it all to addiction and violence. Most players fade out. Eddie burned out and dragged his name through every headline. He didn't just waste a career, he erased it. Sam Mack, he was literally shot in a Burger King robbery before he ever got close to the NBA. Back in 1989, while still a freshman at Iowa State, Mack fled a robbery with a teammate and caught 2 bullets from the police, one in the hip, one in the thigh. Turns out his teammate had the rifle, not him. A jury agreed he'd been coerced, and Mack got acquitted. But that was just the first chapter. Later that same year, he got investigated for sexual assault at Arizona State. No charges were filed. A few months later, he was arrested for credit card fraud after trying to buy jewelry with stolen information. That got him kicked off the ASU team before he even played a game. Then came the turnaround. Mack dropped nearly 25 a game at Tyler Junior College and transferred to Houston, where he posted 17.5 points and earned Newcomer of the Year. Despite going undrafted in '92, he clawed into the NBA. He bounced around, but there were big moments. In Houston, he had a 38-point game. In Memphis, he averaged over 12 points in '99. His total, 2,011 points in 259 games, with stints on the Spurs, Rockets, Grizzlies, Heat, and Warriors. When the NBA doors closed, he tore it up in the CBA and overseas. Russia, Spain, back in the States with the Chicago Steam, still putting up numbers into his 40s. Mack's story is almost unbelievable. Shot in a fast food robbery, cleared of serious charges, nearly derailed completely, then comes back, plays a decade plus of pro hoops, and disappears quietly with no new drama. His life went from felony rumors to 40-point nights. That's not just crazy, it's rare. Anthony Gill. He just got waived by the Wizards after 5 seasons. But his legend has nothing to do with buckets. He once convinced a reporter he was a magician, despite knowing 0 tricks. He even made up a story about owning a 2-headed Siamese cat. That's not quirky. That's professional level trolling. He's been greasing doorknobs, rigging tape across entryways, sneaking into rooms to dump water on unsuspecting teammates. Even when he was the one getting pranked, like when a rookie dropped his phone and Jill tried to return it, only for the rookie to drop it again. It became part of the fun. Gill plays the fool and the foil with equal style, but he's not some loud distraction. Gill's known league-wide and as one of the best teammates around. He's been praised for keeping spirits high, mentoring younger players, and setting a tone of levity that actually helps team chemistry. His mischief has purpose. It's not petty, it's morale boosting. Even now, at 32, after getting cut from a $2 million non-guaranteed deal, he's still pulling pranks like nothing's changed. That's what makes him wild. Not his numbers, but his consistency as a walking sitcom. The guy's like the NBA's weird uncle who never runs out of bits. He's not a high flyer, not a stat machine, but you'll hear teammates talk about him long after his box score fades. Anthony Gill is the rare prankster who turns locker rooms into playgrounds. His career may be winding down, but his chaotic energy is still bouncing off every hotel hallway door he greases. Isaiah Ryder, he lit up the '94 dunk contest with the East Bay Funk dunk, tossing the ball between his legs midair and slamming it home like it was nothing. Then later that year, he casually sank a blind, full-court three-pointer, an accidental miracle that got dubbed the play of the decade. His game was legit. Over 9 seasons, he averaged nearly 17 points a night, made the all-rookie first team, and bounced around the league with highlights to spare, but the guy was chaos off the court. In 1995, he kicked a female bar manager during a dispute. That earned him a 5th-degree assault conviction. Then came the weed arrest in '96. He refused the league's drug counseling program and got slapped with a $200,000 fine. Not learning from that, he got caught using an illegally altered cell phone that billed someone else for his calls. He pled no contest. Less than 2 weeks later, he got arrested again for gambling in public, like actual dice on the sidewalk energy. Every team he landed on, Minnesota, Portland, Atlanta, the Lakers, Denver, eventually suspended or cut him. No one could hold on to him for long. His career wasn't short on moments. He was that dude in contests, dropping highlight plays and hitting wild shots like a glitch in the system. But his off-court record was a mess of arrests, fines, and team exits. The talent was there, but the discipline, not so much. Isaiah Rider didn't just sabotage his own prime, he packed it full of dunk contest gold, courtroom appearances, and enough fines to fund a G League team. He flew high, literally, but crashed harder than most. Slick Watts. He wasn't even drafted in 1973, but still landed with the Seattle Supersonics and led the team in assists as a rookie. That's how you enter the league with a bang. And then he just kept getting stranger, in the best way. In February 1975, he dropped a triple-double with 12 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists, and 4 steals. 2 days later, he came back with 13 points, 14 assists, and 9 steals. That's not a stat line. That's a full-on robbery spree with the basketball. His best season? 1975-76. He became the first player ever to lead the league in both assists and steals. That same year, he earned all defensive honors and took home the J. Walter Kennedy Citizenship Award for his community work. He was locking people down and lifting people up all at once. And then, the man disappeared. Literally. During his time with the Anchorage Northern Knights in the CBA, he vanished mid-season. Flyers went up, asking if anyone had seen Slick Watts. That's the kind of plot twist you don't expect in basketball. Off the court, he stayed busy. Before the pros, he was an All-American at Xavier University of Louisiana. After the NBA, he taught physical education in Seattle and co-founded Watts Basketball Academy with his son. He even made baldness cool, rocked the shiny dome with pride, and made it iconic before Jordan ever did. Slick Watts didn't just beat the odds, he ignored them. From undrafted to league leader, from mysterious disappearances to community icon. He was a walking contradiction with a headband and a bald head. His legacy isn't just stats, it's the mythos he left behind. Darnell Hillman. He won the NBA's first ever slam dunk contest in 1977. But here's the wild part. He wasn't even on a roster. He'd just been traded from Indiana to New Jersey and hadn't signed yet. So he showed up to the contest in a plain white Adidas tank. After winning, he wore a liquor store softball shirt that said bottle shop to accept his prize. That's the kind of energy he brought. Zero chill, maximum flair. He didn't just dunk. He kicked the backboard in warm-ups. No, not metaphorically. He literally kicked the bottom of the glass. Some said he even touched the top of the backboard once. His vertical was so ridiculous that his coach joked about putting a quarter on the rim to see if Hillman could grab it. Hillman fired back. Forget the quarter, put a $100 bill up there, and watch him collect. The contest itself, he beat out Larry McNeil during halftime of Game 6 of the finals and took home $15,000. What did he do with it? Bought his mom a Pontiac Grand Prix SJS, because apparently he could dunk and do gift shopping at the same time. His signature dunk, the Rock the Cradle. Classic, smooth, and just as cocky as his wardrobe choices. Hillman wasn't about playing it safe. He was about jumping out the gym while wearing gym clothes he probably didn't even pack on purpose. He made the dunk contest feel like a performance, not just a competition. Hillman didn't just dunk. He mythologized himself in mismatched gear with a sky-high leap and zero hesitation. Dr. Dunk wasn't a nickname. It was a challenge to gravity, and gravity never stood a chance. JoJo Hunter. In the mid-70s, he was the name in Washington, D.C. basketball, dropping nearly 38 points a game at Mackin Catholic, twice earning All-Met honors and making defenders question their life choices. Rumor had it, the Sixers considered drafting him right out of high school in 1976. He didn't bite. Instead, he played one season at Maryland, then transferred to Colorado, and earned All Big 8 recognition in 1979. But the NBA never came calling. Drafted 136th overall by Milwaukee in 1981, he got cut before ever playing a game. From there, it was the CBA with the Montana Golden Nuggets, the Rochester Zeniths, and whatever international and underground gigs would have him. Then things got darker. In 1997, at age 40, he got convicted for 2 armed robberies at DC jewelry stores, one where a clerk was shot in the wrist. He pled guilty to 11 felonies and got a 14 to 43-year sentence. That's not your typical fade from the league. That's a plot twist from a crime show. But somehow, redemption came. A wave of support from NBA legends. Dave Bing, James Brown, Kermit Washington helped push a letter campaign that contributed to his parole in 2012. By 2013, JoJo was mentoring youth, working at a funeral home, and playing ball again in DC's Senior Men's League, alongside other local old-school icons. This guy went from high school legend to felon to funeral worker to basketball mentor. He never hit the NBA, but his story hit harder than most careers ever could. Hunter's journey didn't just swerve. It veered off the map, flipped, and somehow landed upright again. Daryl Dawkins. He came straight out of high school in Orlando. Drafted 5th overall in 1975 and didn't waste a second, making the NBA look like a playground. By 1979, he had shattered not one, but 2 backboards in under a month, first against Kansas City, then again versus San Antonio. The league didn't just find him, they rewrote the rulebook. That's why spring-loaded breakaway rims exist now. You're welcome, NBA. He didn't just dunk, he composed symphonies of destruction. His dunks had names like Rim Record, Spine Chiller Supreme, and the Absolute Opus. The Chocolate Thunder Flying, Robinzine Crying, Teeth Shaking, Glass Breaking, Rump Roasting, I Am Jam. That's not a dunk, that's a manifesto. Off the court, the guy claimed he trained in the off-season on planet Lovetron, practicing interplanetary funkmanship. He wore gold chains and crop tops during games, once playing in a shirt that said Sir Slam until the league banned jewelry after the finals. He was also the guy who said if he were traded, it should be to Cleveland, because that's where they send the uncoachables. His personality was louder than his dunks. Stevie Wonder nicknamed him Chocolate Thunder. Saturday Night Live called him Man of the Millennium. He talked in third person, performed like a comic book villain, and shattered expectation, along with glass. Dawkins wasn't trying to blend in. He didn't just bend the rim, he bent the league around his vibe. The dude made physics his sidekick and turned dunks into interstellar events. Chocolate Thunder wasn't just a player. He was a one-man gravity violation. Ivan Johnson. He got hit with a lifetime ban from the Korean Basketball League after flipping off a referee during the final game of the championship series in the 2009-10 season. That's not just a bad look, it was the finale of the league's biggest moment. Jeonju KCC Aegis lost to Ulsan Mobius Phoebus, Johnson lost his temper, and the KBL lost its patience. The ban came down fast, along with a $5 million fine. But this wasn't some isolated blow-up. He had already racked up fines earlier that season. $4 million for flipping off a coach, $6 million more for obscene gestures at a player. He was racking up penalties like they were rebounds. When the final suspension hit, it was permanent, not season-long, not indefinite, lifetime. And the chaos didn't stop in Korea. A few years later, Johnson flipped off a Celtics fan while walking off the court as a rookie for the Atlanta Hawks. That earned him a $25,000 fine from the NBA. Then in 2016, he managed to get banned for life from the Philippine Basketball Association too, this time for cursing out the commissioner during a game. Impressive in the worst way. Yet somehow, he still had a professional career across China, Iran, and the NBA's D-League. He played everywhere, burned bridges everywhere, and left behind a resume of skill marred by serial defiance. It's not every day you see a player banned for life in 2 different countries and still land minutes in the NBA. Ivan Johnson didn't just lose his temper, he turned it into a globe-spanning pattern. He made flipping the bird part of his skill set. That's not basketball IQ, it's international incident mode. Brad Miller, he wasn't in the malice at the palace, but he didn't need a full court brawl to prove he had zero tolerance for being pushed around. On January 12, 2002, he fouled Shaq hard during a Bulls-Lakers game. Shaq turned around and launched 2 punches that barely missed Miller's head. The league responded with a 1-game suspension for Miller and 3 for Shaq, plus a $15,000 fine. Then came the playoffs in 2004. Miller, now with the Kings, got tossed from Game 5 against the Timberwolves. On his way out, he flipped off the Minnesota crowd without a second thought. That little salute cost him $10,000. But again, no regrets, no apology, just vibes and rage. Miller wasn't the guy who threw punches first, but he was the guy you didn't want to get tangled with. He played center like it was a contact sport, not a finesse gig. Physical, loud, confrontational. His chest-thumping and aggressive play style made him the type of player who could bait MVPs into losing control, which is exactly what he did to Shaq. He didn't chase fights, but when one came his way, he didn't flinch. He made headlines with fouls and middle fingers, not fists. That's classic Miller. High pain tolerance, low patience. He stayed outside the brawl history books, but his career was packed with gritty, heated moments that showed exactly what kind of competitor he was. Brad Miller didn't play pretty, he played pissed. Andre Blatch, he didn't wait 10 games, he didn't wait 5. He waited 1, just 1. After an opening night loss to the Nets, he publicly questioned his offensive role, complaining he wasn't getting enough touches in the paint. Then, the next day, he doubled down on Twitter, telling critics to shut up and insisting he wasn't blaming teammates or coaches. The season was only 1 game old, and Blatch was already in mid-season grievance form. This made him the first NBA player on record to publicly complain about his role immediately after opening night. Not a vet coasting on championship rings, not a frustrated bench warmer mid-season, but a starter dropping frustration bombs on day 1, and the fallout came fast. Fans booed him during introductions. The coaching staff benched him later that year. He didn't just create a media circus, he put himself on center stage and lit the fuse. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment locker room comment. It was a deliberate call-out, followed by a social media blast. Most players ease into a season. Blatch treated Game 1 like it was Game 75 of a losing campaign. It wasn't just a role issue, it turned into a fan issue, a team chemistry issue, and a long season of friction. Blatch's bizarre decision to air grievances after the very first game is one of the most impatient, bold, and honestly self-sabotaging moves we've seen. It was the fastest transition from starting lineup to doghouse in recent NBA memory. Calvin Murphy. At 5'9", he was one of the shortest players in NBA history, but he hit harder than most guys a foot taller. With a Golden Gloves background and a zero-tolerance attitude, he didn't just take elbows, he gave them. In 1976, he famously threw hands with Sidney Wicks. Other scraps followed, with guys like Dale Schluter, Larry McNeil, and John Brown. He once said, "If you come close enough where I can smell your bad breath, I'm knocking you out." That pretty much sums up the vibe. He was fast, he was fierce, and apparently allergic to backing down. Rumors say he had 17 fights in 8 years. No one's confirmed the exact number, but let's be honest. After a few brawls, you stop keeping track and just keep swinging. Off the court, chaos. He fathered 14 children with 9 different women, and in 2004, 5 of his daughters accused him of molestation. The alleged abuse was said to have happened between 1988 and 1991. Murphy denied everything, claiming it was tied to bitterness and money. After less than 2 hours of deliberation, the jury acquitted him on all counts. So yeah, he made the Hall of Fame as a scorer, but he was also known as the league's smallest enforcer and one of its most complicated personal stories. He stood under 6 feet, but swung like a heavyweight. Calvin Murphy's legacy isn't just points, it's punches, courtroom drama, and a personal life that makes reality TV look tame. Stephon Marbury. If this were a movie script, someone would have said it was too dramatic, too weird, too impossible. He went from Coney Island prodigy to NBA All-Star, and then spiraled out in front of the entire internet. His career in New York imploded in slow motion. Coaching feuds, benchings, and then that infamous live stream in 2009. 24 hours of crying, singing, and eating Vaseline on camera. No, you didn't hallucinate that. He really did it. But then, plot twist. Marbury moved to China in 2010 and became a national hero. He won 3 CBA titles with the Beijing Ducks, was named Finals MVP, got a statue, earned permanent residency, starred in a biopic, and even had an entire museum built in his honor. That's not reinvention, that's reincarnation. The dude went from being booed out of Madison Square Garden to being worshipped in Beijing. And not just as a basketball player, but as a cultural ambassador, a philanthropist, and a symbol of second chances. So yeah, Stephon Marbury didn't just rewrite his career, he rewrote what it means to have one. It's the rare story where the Vaseline isn't the weirdest part. Michael Jordan pushed the last dance. The theory says Jordan watched the media crown LeBron after that 2016 comeback and decided it was time to remind the world who built the throne in the first place. After LeBron led Cleveland from down 3-1 to beat the Warriors, the GOAT chatter exploded. People weren't just tossing out his name, they were planting a flag. And right around that time, Jordan reportedly hit up ESPN and said, "Let's do it." That wasn't some random choice. The timing was sharp. Jordan said yes to the documentary the same year LeBron had that title run. That's not subtle. It's like a chess move from a guy who'd already won the game. The Last Dance wasn't just about basketball nostalgia. It was a straight-up power play. 10 episodes, full-throttle Jordan mythology. 6 titles, legendary drive, insane impact. Everything about it screamed, remember who started this. NBA stars like Ja Morant even said it flipped their pick in the GOAT debate, and a bunch of analysts agreed. The show gave Jordan back the spotlight at the exact moment LeBron was gaining steam. Media outlets even said Jordan felt the pressure. He saw the shift and responded by rolling out his legacy like a cinematic mic drop. Fans took it further, claiming the documentary was a calculated response to LeBron's finals win. They saw Jordan trying to freeze the narrative, make sure the spotlight circled back. The idea is wild, but the timing? It's too perfect. Jordan waited, then he struck, and he didn't whisper. He dropped 10 full hours of GOAT-level storytelling. Paul Pierce. Wheelchair game was a publicity stunt. The theory claims Pierce's 2-minute wheelchair exit during the 2008 finals wasn't about an injury, it was theater. He hit the floor grabbing his knee, looked finished, then reappeared minutes later like nothing happened and started drilling threes. That whiplash moment has had fans raising eyebrows for years. People have floated a far less heroic explanation. He needed the bathroom. That's right. Some say he used the wheelchair to hide an accident. In 2019, Pierce joked on live television that he just had to go to the bathroom. When pressed if it was number 1 or number 2, he said, something went down. That joke lit up the internet. Analysts teased him. Fans went full detective mode. Then there's the visual evidence. A dark stain on his shorts in later footage was waved around like a smoking gun. Turns out, that clip was from a different game, but that didn't stop believers. One Reddit user said Pierce needed a clean getaway and left in his own shorts disaster. Subtle? Not really. Memorable? Definitely. Now mix that with the fact that this whole sequence, injury, wheelchair, return, MVP, is gold for rating. It's a hero arc that the league loves. It kept eyeballs glued to screens and gave Boston a finals moment for the ages. And right when the buzz peaked, Pierce walked it back. He tweeted that people were mad he beat the Lakers and claimed the joke wasn't real, but the damage was done. The mystery only deepened. The theory says the wheelchair wasn't medical, it was strategic. Bathroom blunder, dramatic exit, and comeback glory all wrapped into one weird, unforgettable finals moment. Lou Williams needed his first shot. The theory here's simple. If Lou saw his first shot go in, the rest of the night usually turned into a highlight reel. But if that first one rimmed out, the numbers took a nosedive. When he played for Houston in 2017, the split was wild. If he hit the first shot in those regular season games, he averaged 19.4 points on 51% shooting. Miss it, that dropped to 12.3 points on just over 32%. That's a 7-point swing, just off one early possession. The playoffs told the same story. First shot went in, almost 19 points a game, missed it, barely 12. The shooting percentage gap there was even wider, over 20 points. That's not a tiny mental hiccup. That's a full-on rhythm meltdown. People actually ran the numbers. Confidence intervals, sample size checks, all the stuff nerds love, and it held up. One fan even laid it out in a spreadsheet, claiming the theory wasn't just a hunch, it was proven. And looking at the pattern across regular season and playoffs, it's hard to argue. It wasn't just a random hot or cold night. This looked like a full system reset based on one bucket. Lou wasn't just streaky, he was totally tethered to how the game started. That first make flipped a switch, miss it, and he'd be chucking bricks. The difference wasn't subtle either. We're talking 6 to 7 extra points and a 20-point field goal swing. So yeah, based on this data, Lou Williams played like his whole game was built around that opening shot falling through the net. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Zion Williamson was rushed back in 2020 under NBA pressure to boost ratings. The theory starts with how the season was set up. Before it even began, the NBA locked in 11 of the Pelicans' first 20 games for national television. That's a massive spotlight for a rookie. Then came the setback. Zion had knee surgery in October and missed 44 games. Suddenly, all those primetime games looked like empty promises. But in late January, Zion made his debut. He dropped 22 points in just under 18 minutes, including a stretch of 17 straight. It was electric, but he was also on a strict minutes cap, which raised question. If he was healthy enough to dominate like that, why limit him so heavily? According to the theory, the league felt the pressure. Ratings had dipped. The Anthony Davis trade left New Orleans with one real draw, Zion. So when networks started getting antsy, the NBA allegedly leaned on the Pelicans to bring him back. His return lined up perfectly with another round of national broadcasts. And sure enough, the buzz returned. Viewership jumped, merchandise moved, and the Pelicans suddenly looked like a playoff threat heading into the bubble. But what followed added fuel. Zion struggled with injuries ever since. From hamstrings to conditioning issues, he's missed long stretches every single season. Believers in the theory think this all traces back to that rush debut, pushed out too early to save the league's narrative and protect broadcast numbers. So the theory holds that his first game back wasn't about basketball readiness. It was a move built for cameras and headlines, not long-term health. The timing, the return, and everything that followed still keep this theory burning. Mike Scott was driven away from DC by government buildings. The theory paints Mike Scott as more than just a stretch forward. It turns him into a man who couldn't stomach cruising past federal landmarks. It starts with his known beliefs. Back in 2018, a Washington Post article called him a locker room favorite, but also highlighted that he openly believed the government was hiding UFOs. That label, conspiracy theorist, has followed him ever since. From there, fans started tying dots that may or may not exist. His time in Washington ended after the 2020 to 2021 season, and while his exit looked standard, contract up, free agency move, the theory claims otherwise. Some believe his second stint with the Wizards ended because he hated the daily drive past DC's endless parade of agencies, departments, and monuments. Supporters of the theory argue that for someone deeply skeptical of government transparency, being surrounded by federal buildings every day might have felt like being inside the belly of the beast. It wasn't just traffic, they say, it was tension. The belief is that he didn't vibe with that environment. And when the season wrapped, he chose not to return. Instead, he moved on, briefly signing with New Orleans. There's also the timing. Right after leaving Washington, he didn't land another long-term NBA contract. That's only helped fuel speculation that he opted out of the DC scene entirely. And with no direct quote from Scott shutting down the claim, the mystery hangs. To believers, his well-known distrust of federal secrecy makes this departure feel less like a routine contract expiration and more like a quiet escape. Buddy Hield cycle. It kicks off the same way every time. He gets traded or earns a starting role and fans get fired up. In July of 2024, he landed with Golden State, slid right into major minutes, and by October, he was dropping over 21 points a night while hitting about 50% from three. It looked like a steal. Then the fan buzz starts. Why isn't he playing more? The shooting numbers are elite, and the online hype machine starts pushing for more minutes. But right after that heat check phase, the usual cracks show. His defense, still shaky. Analysts call him streaky and point to tunnel vision. And then Steve Kerr chimes in. He loves the spacing, but says Hield's pressing too much and losing rhythm. That's where the pattern turns. He gets pulled late in games. Bench minutes increase. Suddenly he's not closing tight contests. And by the All-Star break, he's in that weird middle ground. Dangerous on a hot night, but unreliable when the team needs a stop. Then it resets. New season, new hope, same cycle. Fans and analysts keep pointing to the data. His percentages spike early, then settle back around 37% from three and 41% overall. His role shrinks. Media call it the Buddy Hield prop. Draymond's even snapped at him for mental lapses in clutch time. The theory says it's not just coincidence. It's a loop, high start, fan frenzy, defensive exposure, reduced minutes, rinse and repeat. The pattern plays out in full view, and every time, someone thinks it'll be different, then it's not. Doc Rivers is protected by the NBA machine. The theory builds off one obvious pattern. Rivers keeps landing high-profile coaching gigs, no matter the playoff outcomes. Since that title in Boston, way back in 2008, he's bounced from the Celtics to the Clippers, then the Sixers, and now the Bucks. That's 4 major franchises without ever really disappearing from the coaching scene. Supporters of the theory say his survival isn't just about coaching. It's image, media, and connections. He's polished on the mic, knows how to work a press conference, and stays in the media spotlight. Between coaching jobs, he was on ESPN and ABC broadcast, keeping his face and voice in the conversation. He's also deeply tied into the league's inner circle. As senior vice president of basketball operations and a big name in the NBA Coaches Association, he's right there beside league initiatives. From voter campaigns to social issues, Rivers is constantly aligned with the NBA's public stance. Then there's the player angle. He's loved by veterans. Guys like J.J. Redick and DeAndre Jordan have vouched for him. That's kept his locker room steady and front offices calm. Teams trust him with stars, even when the results don't follow. And the results? That's the fuel for the theory. He's blown multiple 3-1 series leads. Fans and former players, like Marcin Gortat, have questioned his adjustments and postseason planning. Yet every time he flames out, another team hires him. The theory says Rivers has an immunity other coaches don't. His connections, persona, and league-aligned reputation create a kind of force field. His playoff record might sag, but the NBA keeps handing him keys to championship rosters. The machine keeps moving, and Doc stays in the driver's seat. 2005 NBA draft was rigged for the Bucks to land a new star big man. The theory centers on the belief that Milwaukee, stuck in post-Kareem irrelevance, was handed the #1 pick to solve a glaring hole. Since Kareem left in the 1980s, the Bucks hadn't had a true franchise big man. That changed in 2005 when they landed the top pick and took Andrew Bogut, a 7-foot Australian who had just averaged over 17 points and 10 rebounds in college and was named National Player of the Year. Here's where it gets suspicious. The Bucks only had a 6.3% chance of getting that top spot. That low probability jump immediately sparked theories. And this wasn't an isolated incident. Fans link it to a longer history of lottery oddities. The Knicks in 1985, the Cavaliers in 2003, and the Hornets in 2012, all viewed as convenient results that helped the league storylines. Milwaukee was floundering. They needed a star. Bogut checked every box. The theory says the NBA saw an opportunity to revive a fading franchise by placing a marketable big man right in the middle of the Midwest. It gave the team new life, gave fans hope, and gave the league a fresh narrative to push. Even though the lottery now uses ping pong balls and outside auditing, believers argue that subtle manipulation is still possible. Not blatant fixing, just enough nudging. The odds, the need, and the reward all aligned too perfectly. So for conspiracy theorists, Milwaukee's leap to the top wasn't luck. It was a move made to reignite a franchise and protect the league's broader business play. Nico Harrison is a strategic NBA plan. It starts with the resume. Harrison spent 19 years at Nike, but had zero front office experience before the Mavericks handed him both the general manager and president of basketball operations roles. In June of 2021, no scouting background, no team building apprenticeship, just a clean leap from sneakers to strategy. Then came the chaos. First, he traded for Kyrie Irving in the middle of the 2023 season. That move exploded on every sports platform, and it paid off when Dallas made the finals in 2024. But in February of 2025, Harrison detonated the Luka era, trading him to the Lakers for Anthony Davis and picks. That wasn't just a move, it was a ratings earthquake. Next came the lottery. With just 1.8% odds, Dallas landed the #1 pick and drafted Cooper Flagg. The whole thing played out like a wrestling storyline. Trade your franchise player, win the lottery, reload with a generational prospect. The theory says this isn't strategy, it's theater. Inside the organization, things got messy. Harrison reportedly fired staff by video call, froze out dissenters, and made major calls without Jason Kidd's input. Coaches resented it, staff turned over, but from the outside, it looked like headline gold. And then there's the coverage. Every time Harrison makes a move, it dominates the media cycle. He's built for virality. Big names, big moves, big backlash. Fans protested, demanded he be fired, even sent threats, but Mark Cuban stood behind him. No suspension, no demotion. The theory says he's not a traditional executive, he's the league's chaos agent. High drama, maximum engagement, and somehow always insulated. Solomon Hill was planted to halt LeBron's prime. March 20th, 2021. LeBron James, then 36, and playing at an MVP level, went down hard after a dive by Solomon Hill. It wasn't just a bad fall. Hill crashed into LeBron's ankle, and the result was a high ankle sprain. That injury knocked LeBron out and triggered the beginning of a slower, more injury-prone stretch in his career. Now here's where things spiral. Solomon Hill wasn't a rotation staple. He averaged around 5 minutes and 2 points per game that season. Fans saw the collision as reckless, an out-of-character dive by a guy who wasn't really making impact plays. Teammates like Montrezl Harrell and Dennis Schroeder didn't hold back. They called it unnecessary, said Hill took LeBron's leg out. That tone sparked a wave of theories online. Fans started calling Hill an agent of destruction. Some suggested the league or certain teams wanted LeBron off the board. After all, this was late prime LeBron, still explosive, still feared, and leading a dangerous Lakers team. Take him out, and the playoff picture shifts. The aftermath gave believers ammo. LeBron's mobility dropped, his defense slipped. He started getting hurt more often, and all that started right after that one hit. Fans pointed to the suspicious timing, the uncharacteristic dive, and the contrast between LeBron's dominance before the injury and his gradual decline afterward. The theory says Hill wasn't just chasing a loose ball, he was there to break the rhythm. A fringe player creating franchise-altering chaos, just in time to reset the title race. The play, the reactions, and the fallout all keep the suspicion alive. Adam Silver targeted the Sixers to derail the process. That's the core of the theory, and it starts back in 2015. At that point, the Sixers were deep into their tank-driven rebuild. Attendance was dropping, and critics said the team was dragging down the league's image. That's when Adam Silver reportedly stepped in. He helped install Jerry Colangelo as a special advisor, an outside move meant to push Sam Hinkie out. Joel Embiid even later said it felt like a full-on intervention. From there, the theory connects Silver's anti-tanking agenda with a specific piece of strategic sabotage, the delay of the so-called double draft. For years, Silver talked about reversing the one-and-done rule, letting players go straight from high school again. By 2018, the timeline pointed toward a change happening around 2021 or 2022. That lined up with the draft the Sixers were watching closely, especially since they owned Miami's unprotected pick. Then Jimmy Butler made Miami competitive. The pick dropped in value, and the rule change suddenly didn't arrive on schedule. The theory says this wasn't a coincidence. Fans believe the NBA delayed the rule change to hurt Philly, letting them give up the pick thinking it would be high, only to shift the talent explosion to a future draft after that pick was gone. Silver's public push against tanking only adds weight. He supported lottery changes, publicly criticized losing strategies, and clearly saw the process as a problem. The timeline of rule proposals, draft delays, and Sixers asset movement is what fuels the suspicion. Put simply, believers think Silver didn't just hate tanking, he used league policy to dismantle the Sixers' rebuild. From Hinkie's forced exit to the manipulated draft environment, the theory says Philly was targeted to set an example. NBA keeps a secret blackballed list. This theory focuses on players whose careers nosedived after public dissent, off-court activism, or image clashes with the league's carefully polished brand. Start with Mohamed Abdul-Rauf. Back in 1996, he refused to stand for the anthem, calling the flag a symbol of oppression. The league suspended him, and though he returned with a compromise, praying silently during the anthem, his career took a sharp downturn. He was traded that same year, and by 1999, he was out of the NBA completely. He says outright he was blackballed. Then there's Craig Hodges, a two-time three-point champion and member of the early 90s Bulls. He wore a dashiki to the White House and handed a letter to the president calling for racial justice. That was in 1991. He never played in the NBA again after 1992. For many, that's no coincidence. Enes Kanter is another modern example. He's been an outspoken critic of Turkey's president, and many believe his international political stance cost him his NBA standing. Despite being a productive player in recent years, he was waived and left unsigned. Fans say the league's business ties with Turkey may have played a role. Allen Iverson's case is murkier. He didn't take political stands, but his image, tattoos, cornrows, was disruptive for a league trying to clean up its look. His late career fade seemed too fast for someone that iconic. Fans wonder if the league was done with his brand. Supporters of the theory point to timing. Players who speak out about race, power, or governments tend to vanish fast. No scandal, just no more contracts. No press releases, just silence. And over time, it's looked like a pattern. I'm also going to do a full video on blackballed players soon, so you can sub if you want to see that. Thanks. Anyways, Luka to Dallas. That's the theory, and it starts with Dirk Nowitzki. By 2018, Dirk was entering his final NBA season after over 2 decades. As the face of the Mavericks and one of the league's most beloved international stars, the NBA needed a plan to maintain European fan engagement and keep Dallas relevant. Enter Luka. That draft night, Atlanta selected Luka with the 3rd pick, but within minutes, Dallas executed a trade to acquire him, swapping for the 5th pick and a future first-rounder. The theory says this wasn't just a smart basketball deal, it was orchestrated. According to believers, Adam Silver and the league saw an opportunity, replace one European icon with another and secure a seamless transition of international stardom. Luka was already a EuroLeague champion and MVP. His resume was stronger than any international prospect since Pau Gasol. His playstyle mirrored the modern NBA direction, and his marketability had global appeal. The theory claims the league nudged Dallas and Atlanta behind the scenes to ensure Luka ended up where Dirk had built his legacy, a smooth handoff of the European torch. Supporters also point to timing. Dirk announced his retirement shortly after Luka's debut season. The NBA didn't want a vacuum. They wanted continuity. Luka's arrival in Dallas gave the franchise instant identity and gave the league another European megastar, tied to a stable, mid-market team with an established international brand. The trade, the timing, and the narrative symmetry all keep the theory alive. One star leaves, another arrives, and the league never skips a beat. NBA suppressed the Boston Celtics in the early 1990s. It's built around the idea that the league had grown tired of Boston's dominance and was ready to usher in a new era without Red Auerbach calling the shots. By 1986, the Celtics had collected 16 championships, with Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, and Red running the show. But as those legends aged out, the league's attention shifted toward flashier teams like the Bulls, the Magic, and the Knicks. Red Auerbach didn't exactly help smooth things over. He famously said, "The league couldn't wait to shove it to us," accusing NBA leadership of being quick to turn their back on Boston. After ownership changes in the late 1980s, Auerbach lost power within the organization, and the theory says the NBA took that opportunity to move away from the old guard. Then came the draft lottery letdowns. Despite several bottom-tier finishes throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s, the Celtics never landed a number 1 pick. Believers argue this wasn't just bad luck, it was a deliberate move to keep Boston from rebuilding. Instead, lottery wins were steered toward newer, more marketable teams in bigger television markets. Larry Bird later added fuel, saying that David Stern wanted a Game 7 during the 1984 finals for the money. That admission suggested even Bird believed the league prioritized profit over fairness. So the theory says the Celtics weren't just victims of a rough rebuild, it was league-managed decline. Red got iced out, draft odds failed repeatedly, and the NBA pushed the spotlight elsewhere. The timing The quotes and the silence all keep the theory alive. Sonics were stolen. Clay Bennett bought the Seattle Supersonics in 2006 with a very public promise to try and keep the team in Seattle. Then almost immediately, he got caught in private emails saying the quiet part loud. They never planned to stay. Bennett and his partner, Aubrey McClendon, were already hoping to bring the team to Oklahoma City. McClendon even bragged about it publicly and ended up fined $250,000 by the league for doing exactly that. Then there was the vote, 28-2. That's how NBA owners lined up to approve the move in 2008. Only Dallas and Portland pushed back. Commissioner David Stern backed the relocation hard, pointing fingers at Seattle's arena and ignoring a real arena plan led by Steve Ballmer. Then Howard Schultz sued Bennett, saying he was lied to and manipulated, and the leaked emails made that case look solid. But out of nowhere, the lawsuit vanished. The NBA said Schultz had signed something stopping him from suing, and that was it. It was over. Oklahoma City somehow pulled together $120 million in public renovations almost instantly. Meanwhile, Seattle voters rejected funding, which didn't help. But then things got shady. Reports showed private calls, behind-the-scenes meetings, and even jet rides between officials. Stern wasn't subtle about his support, brushing off Seattle's objections and pressuring the mayor and a senator. The email, the timing, the one-sided public funding, the aggressive backing from the league, all of it created the belief that this wasn't just a normal move. It felt aligned, like the whole thing had been lined up behind the scenes from day one, with Seattle never having a real shot at keeping their team. Celtics blocked the Spurs. Boston sent Porzingis to Atlanta, and instead of getting a decent haul, they took George Niang and a second-round pick. That's one of the league's most skilled big men swapped for spare parts. It looked like a salary dump, but some think it was way more than that. Atlanta just got better, and that could mean their draft picks, owned by San Antonio, get a whole lot worse. The Spurs have Atlanta's unprotected first-round picks in 2025 and 2027, plus a pick swap in 2026. And they already stacked their roster with young talent, including back-to-back Rookies of the Year and a top draft slot this summer. They've got Wembanyama and a war chest of future stars lined up, unless those Hawks picks get pulled out from under them. Here's where it gets clever. If Atlanta plays just well enough, those Spurs picks slip out of lottery range. Mid-first rounders are still valuable, but not franchise changers. So boosting the Hawks now is a long-term block, and Boston's front office is known for this kind of move, playing a quiet long game with cap space, future picks, and contract control. Fans spotted the weak return, then connected the dots. The Hawks got stronger. The Spurs draft haul suddenly got weaker. And the team behind it all, the Celtics, who didn't need to make a flashy trade, they just needed to keep San Antonio from building a monster around Wembanyama. It's quiet, defense at the front office level. And if this theory's right, Boston didn't just save money, they might have saved the league from another super team. Harden's MVP was delayed. Back in 2016 to 17, James Harden had stats that jumped off the page. Around 29 points, 11 assists, and 8 rebounds per game. And his Rockets, 55 wins. But somehow, the award went to Russell Westbrook, whose team finished 6th in the West with 47 wins. Sure, he averaged a triple-double, but the conversation shifted away from impact and toward spectacle. Harden supporters said the media ran with the Westbrook narrative and never looked back. That's where the theory starts. Harden said it himself. They ran with the story. And in that season, the league had a perfect one. Westbrook bouncing back after Kevin Durant left him. It was emotional, dramatic, and heavily covered. The triple-double thing was rare, but plenty of analysts pointed out that Harden had just as strong a case, if not better. Now fast forward to 2017 to 18, Harden levels up again. 30 points a game, elite efficiency, and the Rockets top the league. Suddenly, it's his moment. He wins MVP, but now it feels too tidy. The league had already kept fans hooked through Westbrook's arc, and now they get the payoff of Harden's long-awaited recognition, right when the Rockets are going toe-to-toe with the Warriors. Marketing-wise, it works perfectly. 2 seasons, 2 heroes, 2 storylines. Harden might have deserved it the year before, but spacing it out made the league's product richer. The timing fed ratings, jersey sales, and endless talk shows. There's no smoking gun here, just a trail of perfect coincidences, enough for fans to believe the NBA stretched out the drama to keep people watching. And if that's true, it worked. NBA sold Ricky Rubio as the next Pistol Pete. Back in 2008, Rubio caught fire during the Beijing Olympics. He was 17 and already making no-look passes and flashy plays that had scouts tripping over each other with Pistol Pete comparisons. It didn't stop there. By 2009, he was showing up in global commercials before he even stepped on an NBA floor, alongside Derek Jeter, Roger Federer, and Tiger Woods. That's not marketing, that's a coronation. and it all felt very coordinated. The Spanish pistol, Pete nickname, didn't come from nowhere. It showed up in pre-draft breakdowns, scouting reports, and YouTube reels. The highlights focused on flair over substance. Behind the back passes, circus assists. Everything short of dressing him in Maravich's jersey. The Timberwolves took him 5th overall. Not a coincidence. That pick fit right into the league's push to turn Rubio into a global ambassador. He had the face, the passes, and the Olympic resume, just not the jumper. Rubio didn't even show up until 2011. He stayed in Spone, contract drama and all. And once he got here, it was rough. Great passer, no doubt. But the guy couldn't shoot. His effective field goal percentage hovered around 40%. And when his rookie year finally had momentum, boom, major ACL tear. That whole carefully built Pistol Pete revival script just evaporated. But the signs were all there. Too much branding, too soon. Too many pre-league promotions. The media, the commercials, the draft slot, it didn't feel like hype. It felt like product rollout. When the performance didn't match, fans started wondering if the NBA created a story they couldn't finish. It looked like an experiment in nostalgia-fueled marketing that fizzled. Blazers hid Roy's medical truth. Brandon Roy's knees were falling apart, and that wasn't a mystery. He had no cartilage in either one. That's bone on bone. He even admitted it himself. Doctors warned him. This was serious, but the Blazers kept rolling him out there. Publicly, they brushed it off as soreness or routine maintenance. Meanwhile, his knees were collapsing. By 2010, Roy was already getting surgeries. In January 2011, he had both knees scoped, but the Blazers stayed upbeat, painting a picture of hope and recovery. Then, right at the start of the next season, he retires, just like that, at 27. Said his knees couldn't take it anymore. So how did it go from optimism to out of the league? In under a year. That's where the theory picks up steam. The timeline is messy. Surgeries, pain, a comeback, and then poof, gone. No big warning, just sudden retirement. And yet behind the scenes, the damage was obvious. That makes people think the Blazers knew how bad it was but kept that part quiet. No lawsuits, no leaks, but the messaging was always soft, always protective. Roy wasn't just a player, he was the franchise's face. And ticket sales and TV deals. The theory says the Blazers shielded the full story. They kept the public focused on short-term hope, while the medical truth got buried under vague quotes and upbeat updates. Not because they didn't believe him, but because the brand mattered more. The money mattered more. And by the time they couldn't cover it anymore, Roy's knees had already ended his career. The story never matched the reality. That's why the theory still lingers. Uncle Dennis blacklisted. Back in 2019, when Kawhi Leonard hit free agency, things got weird. Teams weren't just talking contract numbers. They were dealing with Dennis Robertson, better known as Uncle Dennis, and his long list of extras. We're talking private planes, luxury housing, guaranteed endorsement deals, even whispers of part ownership. That's way beyond standard negotiation. And those kinds of demands, straight up violations under league rules. So the NBA launched an investigation. No fines, no suspensions. But the probe itself sent a message. It meant teams were rattled enough to push the league for answers. And even without penalties, that kind of scrutiny doesn't go unnoticed. From that point on, the image of Uncle Dennis shifted from behind-the-scenes advisor to league-wide red flag. Executives started speaking anonymously, calling him hard to deal with. Masai Ujiri, the Raptors' general manager, publicly questioned how serious Kawhi's camp really was about staying. The Lakers reportedly walked away entirely, and all of this was just the sequel to what went down in San Antonio. Uncle Dennis was already clashing with Spurs leadership over medical decisions and rehab control. Even Bruce Bowen called him out for giving Kawhi bad advice. After all that, teams quietly stopped working with him directly. Not a formal ban, but a pattern, only talking through Kawhi's official agent, avoiding Dennis completely. He didn't disappear, he just became the guy nobody wanted to deal with. So here's the theory. Uncle Dennis got himself blacklisted, unofficially. Not because of one thing, but because of all of it. Impossible demands, uncomfortable negotiations, and a history of control moves that left front offices spooked. There's no league memo, but you won't find many GMs dialing his number anymore. NBA extended the 2016 finals. When Cleveland fell behind 3-1, the next 2 games exploded in viewership. Game 6 pulled over 20 million eyes, and Game 7 peaked at 31 million. That is not a theory. That is ratings math, and it is the fuel behind claims that the league had every incentive to stretch the series as far as it could go. Game 6 was chaos. Golden State coach Steve Kerr called the officiating ridiculous. Steph Curry fouled out 6 calls, and at least half were shaky. He tossed his mouth guard, got ejected, and it all boiled over. Even neutral fans thought the whistles felt tight. The Warriors did not hold back either. Kerr and the players went public with their frustration, saying it did not feel like a fair fight. Then came the audio. Normally, Referee mic feeds are available in some form, clean, edited, or bleeped. But in this case, silence. No confirmed footage, no post-game audio. That is where the theory picks up steam. Fans claim the NBA held it back. The league never confirmed anything, but the absence of that audio only made people talk more. Add in fan threads, full of testimonies about off-ball fouls and strange no-calls, and it felt like the officiating had a different set of rules that night. No official ever said it was rigged, no documents leaked. But the officiating was suspect. The timing was perfect, and the result? A Game 7 classic that delivered monster ratings. The NBA got exactly what it needed. Whether that is coincidence or coordination, that is the part fans still argue about. But one thing is certain. Game 6 never stopped feeling off. Allen Iverson's wife. The drama kicked off in July 2002 when Allen Iverson reportedly tossed his wife, Tawana, out of their house with no clothes on. Not once, not twice, but apparently 3 times. That's what a guy named Charles Jones told police during a 911 call. Tawana left the mansion and checked into a Marriott hotel, probably hoping for a break from the chaos. The next day, Iverson showed up asking hotel staff about her using fake name because nothing screamed subtle like a 6-foot star athlete using an alias at the front desk. Then things really escalated. Iverson and his uncle barged into his cousin's 3rd-floor apartment looking for her. And yes, reports say he had a gun visibly tucked into his waistband. Witnesses said he threatened to kill her the next time he saw her. Let that sink in. At dawn, police found him circling the Marriott's parking lot like he was in a real-life episode of a crime show. He got slapped with 14 charges. 4 were felonies, the rest misdemeanors. But by the end of July, 9 charges got tossed out. Only 2 misdemeanors stuck for a minute, and even those got dropped later. Just a messy situation with a media spotlight and a whole lot of unanswered questions. Jeremy Lin ESPN controversy. During Jeremy Lin's breakout with the New York Knicks in February 2012, he helped lead a 7-game winning streak. That stretch came to a screeching halt in a loss to New Orleans, where Lin had 9 turnovers. Then things got messy. ESPN's mobile site ran a headline reading, "Chink in the Armor." It was meant to describe a weak spot, but Lin, being Asian American, turned that into a controversy that blew up fast. The headline was deleted within about an hour, but the damage was already done. ESPN apologized, calling it offensive. The fallout came quick. Anthony Federico, the 28-year-old editor who wrote the headline, was fired. He said it wasn't intentional, but ESPN didn't care. Then Max Britos, a host, used the same phrase on air. He got hit with a 30-day suspension. It didn't matter how common the idiom was, everyone was focused on context, and this was not the time or place. Other media outlets also got slammed for racially insensitive coverage around Lin. Saturday Night Live even parodied the whole situation, roasting sports media. ESPN publicly apologized to Lin and the Asian American community. Federico went on to become a Catholic priest, calling the headline a turning point in his life. The entire moment became a case study in how words, especially in sports media, can hit way harder than intended. Kendall Gill versus Tim Doyle. Back in March 2013, right after a Bulls game ended with a hotly debated goaltending call, things started heating up off the court. Kendall Gill called out the refs for blowing the call. Tim Doyle disagreed and said it was 100% correct. That back and forth carried right into a panel taping of Sports Talk Live on CSN Chicago. Doyle doubled down on air, and Gill clearly didn't let that slide. After the show, in the newsroom, Gill confronted Doyle. What started as words quickly turned into shoving. Then Gill threw a punt. The two bumped into a wall sign, and a little blood was drawn. No details on whose, but enough to get attention. Multiple sources confirmed the whole scuffle, including CBS and Crain's Chicago. Witnesses watched it all go down, and the incident spread like wildfire through the media. CSN didn't hesitate. They suspended Gill for the rest of the 2012 to 2013 Bulls season. He didn't return the next season either, and by September, he confirmed he was out. Tim Doyle, he kept his job with the Big Ten Network and faced no reported consequences. Years later, Gill did return to CSN, but the altercation left a mark on his broadcasting reputation. No police reports, no lawsuits, just a brawl in the workplace that played out in the media spotlight like a side episode no one expected. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Derrick Rose test scandal. Derrick Rose lit up Chicago's high school basketball scene and committed to Memphis in 2007. But behind that highlight reel was an academic cloud that would later stain one of the best college seasons ever. Rose failed the ACT 3 times in Chicago, then magically passed the SAT in Detroit. No confirmation ever surfaced on who actually took that Detroit test, and it eventually got voided by the Educational Testing Service. Memphis ran its own check and decided Rose was in the clear. He played that season, helped Memphis rack up 38 wins, and led them to the national title game. But in August 2009, the NCAA stepped in, ruled Rose ineligible, and erased the entire season. That's right, every win gone. And just when you thought that was the end of it, Chicago Public Schools revealed that Rose's high school transcript had been altered, a grade change from a D to a C. Again, not enough to disqualify him, but it didn't look great. Things got worse when 5 people in a Chicago-based test-taking scam were indicted. Some had taken the SAT for other athletes, but no one directly tied Rose to them. He was never charged, never formally accused, and faced no personal NCAA sanctions. The school and Rose settled with fans in a $100,000 agreement, no guilt admitted. So while the wins disappeared, Rose's career didn't. He still went number 1 in the draft and never looked back. Kevin Johnson allegations. In the summer of 1995, a teenage girl accused then Phoenix Suns player Kevin Johnson of making sexual advances at his guest house. Police interviewed her in a video that surfaced years later, where they called her credible. Johnson responded with a half apology, saying he didn't fully agree with her version. Prosecutors passed on charges, citing low odds of conviction. A draft settlement offering $230,000 was reportedly created for the girl's family. In 2007, Johnson faced more heat, this time as head of a charter school he founded. Multiple students accused him of inappropriate touching. Police investigated, and though the sheriff called Johnson's behavior ill-advised, no laws were broken, and charges were never filed. A teacher who raised alarms resigned and said she was pressured to recant. Supporters backed her story. Then in 2015, while Johnson was serving as Sacramento mayor, a city employee said he groped and harassed her. The city attorney's office launched an independent review and said the claims couldn't be substantiated. CBS and HBO's Real Sports later aired coverage, spotlighting past accusers and the patterns in Johnson's conduct. Still, no criminal charges have ever been filed. He's denied wrongdoing the entire time. Despite growing scrutiny and multiple investigations, Johnson faced no legal convictions. The accusations followed him from the court to City Hall, and they're still part of his legacy, whether he likes it or not. Robert Horry versus Steve Nash. It was Game 4 of the Western Conference semifinals. May 14, 2007. Phoenix had the lead late, up 102-98 with just 18 seconds left. Then Robert Horry went full linebacker and hip-checked Steve Nash right into the scorer's table. He got tossed immediately, slapped with a flagrant, and later suspended for 2 games. Horry would later admit on a podcast that the move was 100% intentional. But here's where it hit the Suns harder. Stat and Boris Diaw left the bench during the scuffle. They didn't throw punches, didn't get physical, but they broke the NBA's ironclad no leaving the bench rule. That meant both were suspended for Game 5. Coach Mike D'Antoni and Steve Nash weren't quiet about it either. Nash even said the decision would haunt them forever. Game 5, the Suns lost by just 3 points, 88-85, blowing a 16-point lead. With momentum gone, the Spurs closed out the series in 6. That one moment flipped everything. The league defended the rule, saying it had to apply it exactly as written. Critics, they pointed out how rough the Spurs had played all series, without serious punishment. Nash got hit, kneed, tripped, but only Phoenix saw guys suspended. Years later, people still talk about that play like it changed the entire postseason, because it kind of did. Isaiah Rider spitting incident. Back in November 1997, Isaiah J.R. Rider was playing for the Portland Trail Blazers when he made headline, not for scoring, but for spitting. During halftime of a game in Detroit, Rider turned toward a fan and spit. Yeah, right at them. The NBA hit him with a 3-game suspension and a $10,000 fine. That was the official punishment, but it wasn't the first time Rider found himself in hot water. Go back to 1994, when Rider was with the Minnesota Timberwolves. During an autograph dispute at a sports bar, he kicked a female manager. He was convicted of 5th-degree assault for that one. There's no debate about it. It's on the record, and it's not a great look. Now, there's been some confusion floating around about him assaulting a female fan in 1997. Let's clear that up. There's no evidence he physically attacked or kicked anyone during the spitting incident. The only confirmed consequence was a suspension and fine. No charges, no assault accusations. Just a disgusting moment that got him penalized by the league. So to sum it up, 1 documented assault in 1994, 1 confirmed spit in 1997, and a pattern of poor choices that kept his name in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. Chris Webber, Puerto Rico incident. In August 1998, Chris Webber was traveling through San Juan's Luis Muñoz Marin International Airport when a drug-sniffing dog caught the scent of marijuana on a carry-on bag. The bag had American Airlines tags and was initially linked to Jerry Stackhouse, but Webber claimed it as his. Inside were 11 grams of marijuana. Customs detained him, but there were no criminal charges. He paid a $500 administrative fine under Puerto Rico's zero-tolerance policy. But then came the backpedaling. Webber's agent insisted he didn't admit anything and that a woman named Shane Johnson, a travel companion, owned the bag and the weed. Meanwhile, Fila wasn't buying it. They yanked him from promotional duties and soon after ended their endorsement deal entirely. This wasn't Webber's only run-in with the law that year. Back in January, he got arrested in Maryland on charges including marijuana possession, DUI, resisting arrest, and assault. Most serious charges were dropped, but he still paid a $560 fine. So the Puerto Rico episode didn't happen in a vacuum. It was part of a turbulent stretch that helped convince the Washington Wizards to trade him to Sacramento. No convictions, but the optics, rough. A fine in Puerto Rico, a lost sponsorship, and a growing pile of legal drama. It all added up fast. Larry Bird bar fight. During the 1985 Eastern Conference Finals, Larry Bird ended up throwing a punch, not on the court, but in a Boston bar. After Boston took the first 2 games against Philadelphia, Bird got into it with a bartender bouncer at Chelsea's bar in Quincy Mark. He landed a right hook and walked away with a swollen shooting hand. That hand, yeah, it was his index finger, and reporters noticed the swelling right away at shoot-around. Before the fight, Bird was his usual MVP self. He dropped close to 30 points a night and shot nearly 50%. But after the bar incident, the wheels started wobbling. In games 4 and 5, his field goal percentage crashed to around 30, and his scoring dropped in half. Not exactly the playoff gear Boston was counting on. By the time they got to the finals against the Lakers, Bird pushed through, but he wasn't peak Bird. He still managed 23.8 points per game, but shot just 45%, below his usual numbers. The hand wasn't broken, but it was clearly affecting him. Bird later admitted the whole thing was a mistake, said he liked to drink beer and go out, called it being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The Celtics didn't fine him, the league didn't suspend him, but the performance dip, that stuck. And yeah, it probably cost them. Derek Fisher leaves Utah. In the 2006 to 2007 season, Derek Fisher signed with the Utah Jazz after runs with the Lakers and Golden State. During that season, his young daughter Tatum was diagnosed with a rare eye cancer. Fisher needed to be near top-tier medical care, which was limited in Utah. In May, during the Western Conference semifinals, Fisher made headlines when he flew from New York straight to Game 2, arriving mid-game. He suited up, checked in, and helped force overtime, earning a massive standing ovation in Salt Lake City. But just 2 months later, on July 2nd, Fisher asked the Jazz to release him from his contract so he could move his family closer to specialized treatment centers. The Jazz agreed, showing public support. Then came the twist. Fisher signed a 3-year, $14 million deal with the Lakers. That move left some Utah fans steaming. Despite Fisher leaving around $8 million on the table, some fans accused him of using his daughter's illness as a way to get back to Los Angeles. When he returned for the playoffs the next year, the cheers were gone. The boos were loud, and some fans even shouted cancer during free throws. Critics called the reaction classless. Columns slammed the hypocrisy of fans turning on a father trying to take care of his sick daughter. No fines, no discipline, just a choice that put family first and still managed to ignite a bizarre wave of resentment. Darren Williams and Jerry Sloan. On February 9th, 2011, the Utah Jazz were playing the Bulls when things boiled over at halftime. Jerry Sloan had drawn up a play, and D. Will decided to freelance, calling a different one. Sloan confronted him saying, "If you're going to break the offense, would you at least let your teammates know?" Williams said, "My bad," but didn't stop talking. Sloan snapped back, asking, "Do you want me to quit right now?" Team executives were in the room, including CEO Greg Miller. Miller later told Sloan that if it came down to choosing sides, they'd back him. Sloan just said, "I don't know how much I have left in me." The next day, after 23 seasons, he resigned. Sloan publicly said it wasn't just about Williams and more about burnout. Williams said the same, denying he forced Sloan out and claiming he'd have asked to leave first. But the writing was on the wall. The front office confirmed the spat was the final straw. Analysts pointed to long-standing tension between the coach and his star point guard. 2 weeks later, the Jazz shipped Williams to the Nets. That moment in the locker room didn't just end a game, it ended an era. Sloan was old school, Williams wasn't, and Utah chose neither in the end. Atlanta Hawks email scandal. In June 2014, Hawks GM Danny Ferry read aloud a scouting report about free agent Luol Deng, saying Deng has a little African in him. like a guy who'd have a store up front but sell counterfeit in the back. That call included team execs, and minority owner Michael Guerin Jr. immediately called for Ferry's firing. The team launched an investigation, but what they found next was even worse. During the probe, they uncovered a 2012 email from co-owner Bruce Levinson. In it, Levinson claimed the Hawks' mostly black fan base was scaring off white suburban ticket buyers. He suggested white cheerleaders tone down hip-hop and music for middle-aged white men, because in his words, white fans were more valuable. Yeah, that was actually in the email. Levinson self-reported the message and announced he'd sell his share of the team. Ferry went on an indefinite leave and was later disciplined. CEO Steve Koonin publicly apologized, calling it a failure to fans and employees. Some media compared it to Donald Sterling's scandal, while others, like Kareem, said Levinson's comments were clumsy business logic, not outright racism. The sale went through in June 2015. It was a massive shakeup that exposed how deeply racial bias could run in front offices, quietly buried until someone finally pressed reply all. NBA All-Star Weekend in Vegas. In February 2007, the NBA brought its All-Star Weekend to Las Vegas. No NBA team, just bright lights, loud music, and questionable judgment. Held at UNLV's Thomas and Mack Center, it was the first time the league staged its showcase in a city without a franchise. And on paper, the setup looked golden. Cirque du Soleil, Christina Aguilera, Toni Braxton, all the flash Vegas could offer. On court, it delivered. Kobe Bryant took home MVP with 31 points, 6 assists, and 6 steals. The West beat the East 153-132. Stat dropped 29 and 9. LeBron put up 28, and Dwight Howard made his All-Star debut with 20 and 12. Off court, a total disaster. Over 400 arrests, non-stop fights, and a shooting outside a strip club that left a bouncer paralyzed. The shooter was allegedly tied to Adam Pacman Jones. Las Vegas looked like it hosted a riot disguised as a basketball weekend. Even the mayor called it a disaster. Police were everywhere. Trash was everywhere else. Locals weren't thrilled. Fans were out of control. This was supposed to be a statement. Vegas could handle the NBA. Instead, it turned into a cautionary tale. The league hasn't gone back since. Spectacular game. Absolute mess outside the arena. The definition of a beautiful disaster. Lakers and Kobe Bryant medical records leak. During the early stages of Kobe Bryant's sexual assault case in 2003, his defense team tried to get access to the accuser's private medical and mental health records. They argued those records were relevant for credibility. The woman had been hospitalized earlier that year, and Bryant's lawyers wanted to use that to question her statements. But those files were sealed under Colorado law, and prosecutors said unsealing them would discourage future victims from coming forward. Then came the media storm. Reporters started publishing information that seemed to come from those very same sealed documents. That raised alarms. Judge Terry Ruckriegel looked into it, but ultimately decided not to launch a formal investigation. No one got caught leaking anything, and he ruled that future disclosures would stay tightly controlled. This whole mess turned into a legal balancing act. Victim privacy versus defendant rights, and media access versus courtroom integrity. It spotlighted how difficult it is to protect sensitive medical details in a case under the full glare of celebrity attention. By 2004, the criminal charges were dropped when the accuser declined to testify. The following year, Bryant and the accuser reached a confidential civil settlement. No confirmed leaks, no charges, but it left behind a legacy of how fragile courtroom privacy can get when the defendant is one of the biggest names in sports. Kareem Olympic boycott. In 1968, Kareem, then still Lou Alcindor, decided not to try out for the U.S. Olympic basketball team. The country was in chaos. Riots in Newark and Detroit. Martin Luther King Jr. had just been assassinated, and Kareem didn't feel like representing a flag that wasn't representing him. He said going to Mexico would have made it seem like he cared more about career than justice. He aligned with the Olympic Project for Human Rights, a movement calling for structural change in sports, demanding more black coaches, banning apartheid-era South Africa, and restoring Muhammad Ali's title. While others debated, Kareem made his call. Sit it out. Competing for a country denying civil rights felt like betrayal. He said having fun in Mexico sounded selfish, while violence exploded back home. The backlash came fast. People called him a traitor. Mail poured in with racial slurs. Critics labeled him uppity. But Coach John Wooden privately stood by him, even defending him to doubters in letters. Kareem's move didn't get medals or highlight reels. It got headlines and history. Decades later, that decision is seen as a milestone in athlete protest. Before Ali dodged Vietnam or Smith and Carlos raised fists, Kareem made a quiet exit that said everything. He pushed the edge of what athletes could do. and set the stage for what they still can. Craig Hodges, blackballed. In 1991, after the Bulls won their first championship, Craig Hodges walked into the White House in a dashiki and Muslim kufi. He wasn't there just to smile for cameras. He handed over an 8-page letter to President George H.W. Bush demanding action on racism, poverty, and police violence in black communities. The letter didn't pull punches, and neither did Hodges. He criticized Michael Jordan for staying silent on social issues. He even tried to rally a boycott of the NBA Finals after the Rodney King beating. So when the Bulls cut him in July 1992, it raised eyebrows. Hodges was a 3-point contest legend and still shooting efficiently, but not a single NBA team called, not one. He later said he was blackballed, invisible, not for his game, but for his voice. In 1996, he sued the league and all 29 teams for $40 million, saying his political advocacy got him kicked out of the NBA. David Stern called the claim ridiculous. Teams said it was just declining skills and age, but Hodges never bought it. In interviews in his memoir, Long Shot, he stuck to his belief. His exit wasn't about basketball. It was about a league that wasn't ready for protest. His jumper was still clean. His conscience just made people uncomfortable. Latrell Sprewell boat injury. In late September 2002, Latrell Sprewell hosted a party on his yacht in Milwaukee. Things went south fast when an uninvited woman threw up near the bar. Sprewell asked her to leave. Her boyfriend didn't like that, and during the confrontation, Sprewell threw a punt. Problem, he missed. Instead of landing the hit, he smacked the wall and shattered a bone below his right pinky. That's his shooting hand? He needed surgery and was out at least 6 weeks. The Knicks weren't thrilled. Not only did he injure himself off court, but he didn't report it right away. The team fined him $250,000, the largest fine they'd ever handed out at the time. He was barred from team activities while he recovered. Sprewell's camp tried to change the story. His agent claimed the injury happened while adjusting the boat's navigation after hitting a wave. Sprewell himself denied there was any fight, said he just slipped. He later sued the New York Post for defamation over how they covered it, asking for $40 million. No league suspension, but the Knicks weren't having it. The whole situation made him look reckless, and he missed the start of the season because of a fist that landed on fiberglass instead of flesh. Knicks versus Raptors lawsuit. In August 2023, the Knicks filed a lawsuit accusing the Raptors of straight-up espionage. They claimed a former employee, Ikechukwu Azotam, acted as a mole, sending over 3,000 files full of proprietary scouting reports, playbooks, and internal strategies to Toronto right after they hired him. According to the Knicks, this wasn't casual info. It was detailed data, they said, qualified as trade secrets. The Raptors called the whole thing baseless. They said most of what Azotam shared could be found on public databases like Synergy. Still, the Knicks pushed for more than $10 million in damages. And then things got stickier. A federal judge ruled the case had to go through NBA arbitration, meaning Commissioner Adam Silver would oversee it. The Knicks were not thrilled, pointing out that Silver has close ties with Raptors Governor Larry Tannenbaum. Too bad, said the court. The hearing is set for late July 2025. That's nearly 2 years after the suit was filed. In the meantime, the Knicks have blasted the delay and accused the league of dragging its feet. At its core, this case is testing how far teams can go to protect digital strategies and how the NBA deals with alleged inter-team sabotage. Maverick Carter, illegal betting. In November 2021, Maverick Carter, LeBron James' longtime business partner, sat down with federal agents. The agents were digging into Wayne Knicks, a known illegal bookmaker. Carter admitted placing around 20 bets on both football and basketball games, including NBA matchups, through Knicks. He estimated each bet landed somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. Carter wasn't a target of the investigation, cooperated fully, and was never charged. And while betting on NBA games sounds like a career killer, league rules didn't actually cover him. NBA bans players, refs, coaches, and team staff from betting, but not business managers. Same deal with the players' union rules for agents. Carter, he falls outside both. He said he couldn't recall betting on any Lakers games and insisted he never placed bets for anyone else. LeBron responded that he only found out recently and made it clear Carter acts independently. He's his own man, LeBron said, adding that gambling is legal and Carter has no formal NBA ties. Still, the optics were a mess. Even though he didn't break NBA rules, the fact that someone so close to a superstar had wagered on league games set off alarms. It sparked calls for the NBA to reconsider its rules and maybe start watching the inner circles a little more closely. Kwame Brown and Michael Jordan. In 2001, Michael Jordan was running the show in Washington's front office when he made history, drafting Kwame Brown straight out of high school with the #1 overall pick. It was the first time a high school player had ever gone first. Brown promised Coach Doug Collins he'd make the team proud, but things got messy fast. Behind the scenes, Jordan wasn't just acting like a team executive, he was hands-on, intense, and reportedly brutal. He pushed Brown hard in practices, yelled at him, called him out in front of teammates. Some reports described it as humiliation. Others said Jordan tried to motivate the teenager like a peer, but Brown just wasn't ready for that kind of heat. Turns out Jordan even tried to trade him before the season started, offering Brown in a deal for Elton Brand. Owner Abe Pollin stepped in and blocked it. Brown stuck around, but confidence? That got shaken. Years later, Brown said some of the worst stories, like being reduced to tears or hearing slurs, weren't true. But he admitted the tone Jordan used wore him down. The fallout didn't just affect Brown's development, it became part of the argument for the one-and-done rule. The pick wasn't just about talent, it was also about what happens when your boss is a legend who expects you to be one on day one. Jackson Hayes, domestic case. In late July 2021, things spiraled when Los Angeles police got a call about a domestic disturbance at Hayes' house around 3 a.m. The call came from a relative of his girlfriend, Sophia Jamora. When officers arrived, Hayes shoved one of them, who later needed treatment for an elbow injury. Police ended up using a taser to subdue him and took him into custody. At first, Hayes faced 12 misdemeanor charges, ranging from domestic battery and false imprisonment to resisting arrest and vandalism. But by February 2022, he pleaded no contest to just 2 of them, false imprisonment and resisting arrest. The rest were dropped. A few months later in June, the court sentenced him to 450 hours of community service, a full year of domestic violence counseling, and 3 years of probation. He also had to pay restitution to the officer. Then in November 2024, surveillance footage surfaced, showing Hayes pulling, pushing, and even spitting at Jamora. The video included her telling him she didn't feel safe. The league reopened the investigation, but didn't hand down any discipline. The Lakers stood by him, with both the general manager and head coach saying Hayes had taken responsibility. A civil lawsuit from Jamora is still ongoing. Meta World Peace Elbow Incident. During a wild double overtime game in April 2012, Meta World Peace, who used to go by Ron Artest, slammed home a dunk for the Lakers. In the middle of his celebration, he threw a sharp left elbow that connected with the side of James Harden's head just 18 seconds later. Harden immediately dropped to the floor and was diagnosed with a concussion, ending his night right there. Officials watched the replay and hit Meta with a flagrant foul type 2. That meant an automatic ejection, and he was escorted off the court. After the game, Meta said the hit wasn't intentional and hoped Harden would be all right. The league didn't take it lightly. Just 2 days later, the NBA handed him a 7-game suspension. That carried through the rest of the regular season and spilled into the playoffs. Harden's health became a major talking point, as did Meta's emotional outburst. Kevin Durant didn't hold back, saying the elbow didn't feel like a basketball play. The media jumped in too, digging into whether Meta had let his old Ron Artest persona take over. The whole thing reignited questions about violent plays, emotional control, and how quickly the mood can shift in high-stakes games. That elbow wasn't just part of a celebration, it became the story. Dick Bavetta game, manipulation claims. Accusations about veteran ref Dick Bavetta manipulating NBA games mostly trace back to one guy, Tim Donaghy. Donaghy, who got caught betting on games himself, claimed Bavetta was used by the league to influence outcomes. He said during the 2002 Western Conference Finals, Bavetta was told to call Game 6 in favor of the Lakers to push a Game 7. According to Donaghy, Bavetta was good at this kind of thing, reading subtle signals from league officials and stretching series when needed. He even quoted Bavetta talking about helping teams that were trailing in the series. But here's the thing. Federal investigators dug into Donaghy's story and didn't find any proof that the NBA was rigging games through Bavetta or anyone else. No documentation, no official orders, nothing solid. Then there's the statistical angle. Analysts like Henry Abbott and BYU's Joe Price ran the numbers on Bavetta's games from 2003 to 2007. They were checking if big underdogs fared better with him refereeing. If Bavetta was really manipulating things, you'd expect closer games or surprise wins. But nope, blowouts were actually slightly more common with Bavetta on the floor, and underdogs won less often. Betting against favorites in Bavetta games would have cost money. So while Donaghy's story makes for dramatic reading, actual evidence doesn't back it up. It's one guy's word against the math and the investigations. James Worthy solicitation arrest. On November 15, 1990, James Worthy found himself in legal trouble just hours before tip-off. He was arrested at the Stauffer Hotel in Houston after calling an escort service, which happened to be under surveillance by the city's vice squad. He was charged with 2 counts of solicitation of prostitution, a Class B misdemeanor under Texas law. Here's the wild part. After being released on bail somewhere between $500 and $1,000, he made it back to the arena during the second quarter. When he walked onto the court, the crowd gave him a standing ovation. He ended up scoring 24 points, helping the Lakers pull off a 108-103 overtime win. 5 days later, Worthy entered a not guilty plea through his lawyers, but he later changed that to no contest. The final outcome? He got 1 year of probation, a $500 fine, and had to complete 40 hours of community service. No jail time, no suspension from the league, and he kept playing. The timing made the whole thing stand out. An arrest, a courtroom plea, a big game performance, all in the same week. It showed how quickly off-court chaos can crash into game night, yet somehow the spotlight stayed on both. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching,